Greetings, peoples of the interwebs. Jake here once again. Welcome to another episode of the Pasty podcast. And joining me today on this episode is my good friend, Anna.
Thank you for having me. This is so exciting. I'm very enthusiastic about this. I think we have a lot of really fun topics today.
Yeah, because like what we were saying kind of just before we started, because you had been on before many moons ago, and that I feel like we covered just about every conversational topic that one would expect to come up, and then everything in between that most people would probably never think would come up in conversation.
Didn't we talk about purple hippos at one point?
We did. I don't know what the context of that is. If I remember, I'll link that in the description below when I do publish or upload this. That way you all can go back and revisit that one. Because, yeah, we talk about a lot, and I don't remember how we got on half or more of those topics. Like the purple hippos. I don't know where that came from.
But you know it's going to be a treat.
Yeah, you know it's going to be a treat. Let's see, so I think we've known each other since, 2017 or 2018?
2018.
Okay.
Because I started working at Kohl's, right after I graduated high school.
Okay, that sounds about right. And it was one of the two.
Mm-hmm.
So, known each other for a while. So, obviously we know each other pretty well. But for the listeners, this is their first time getting to know you. So, I ask the 4 questions I ask all my guests, which, for those of you who do not know, I spent millions of dollars paying the top scientists, researchers to come up with these 4 key questions. So that way, at the end of the episode, the listeners, they'll know my guests like the back of their own hands, or like their own family. So, question number 1. My mind just went blank. It's been a while since I recorded an episode. Oh my god.
And all that money goes to waste.
Damn you scientists! Oh, there it goes. What's your 3rd favorite dinosaur?
Ooh.
See, most people ask, what's your favorite whatever.
Mm-hmm.
No one asks what's your 3rd favorite.
No, and it's important to know. Because there is always a rank for these things.
Yeah. Says a lot about a person if you know their 3rd favorite dinosaur.
I've never thought about it, but I would imagine it would.
Yeah, that's what I paid these scientists for.
Oh gosh, honestly, I don't know. I don't know if these are actually real or not. Because I don't really study dinosaurs, unfortunately. Funny enough, my nephew does, though. He can rattle them off. He's 7 now. He knows all of them by heart. Can tell you, all, especially, the long ones. He just rattles it off like it's no big deal. How do you just retain all of that information?
Especially because a lot of dinosaurs have, those long, Latin and Greek names.
They do.
Tyrannosaurus Rex, that's fairly easy.
Mm-hmm.
But then you've got, others where, especially, I feel like it's the, I forget the exact name of, the type of dinosaurs, but, brontosauruses, brachiosaurus, the sauropods, that's what they're called. The ones with, the really long necks and tails.
Oh, yeah.
Those, I feel have some of the longest, unnecessarily longest names, where, again, I understand that they're, Latin-based or Greek-based, and so you gotta come up with a name that kind of explains what the dinosaur was all about, because some of their names are the 4-legged tyrant lizard who ate babies, or whatever, and they have to find the Latin or Greek translation to describe that.
It's kind of poetic, though, because when it comes to dinosaurs, people are either all in, and they, know way too much about it, or they're just not that invested at all. It's who cares?
But I feel and I could be speaking for myself, having grown up with the original Jurassic Park, but I feel that's what got a lot of people into dinosaurs, was that original Jurassic Park, especially at my age, because that came out in 93, so I was 2 when it came out, and so it was on, VHS, for those of you who know what that is or remember that.
I remember those.
So, I remember as a kid watching that, and again, those special effects still hold up to this day really well. So as a kid, I just assumed those were real dinosaurs. It's kind of like, oh my god, we can create real dinosaurs!
Because why not?
Yeah.
Which I think they are actually working on that now.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Look, I haven't seen Jurassic Park.
I love how, like, anytime there's a movie where something, like, really awful and disastrous happens and everybody's like, we should never pursue that, then they go and pursue it and they try to make it happen. It's like, I don't know why. Or
it's like they watched the movie and then they became inspired by it, which I kind of do understand from a scientific aspect of why you would want to theoretically, genetically recreate dinosaurs or something like that.
Right.
But maybe start off with animals that, like mammoths, because there's been a lot of talks about, bringing back woolly mammoths and reintroducing them to the wild, because they actually do have, like, natural benefits. So that makes more sense. Dinosaurs, though, how do we know they would survive in this modern climate? Who's to say we would spend billions, probably, to bring them back and be like, all right, go wild T-Rex, and it just drops dead because there's not enough oxygen or it's too cold or something, so...
Right, so going back to just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Exactly, which is one of my favorite lines that Ian Malcolm asked in the original Jurassic Park. But, okay, so...
I like the dinosaur with the thing around its neck that, like, fans out. And
Dilophosaurus.
Yes.
Okay.
I should know that because, like I said, my nephew, every time he comes over, I will ask him, I'm like, can you just, like, rattle those off to me just, like, one by one? Because I'm just fascinated. So I should know the names, but I don't.
Fair. I used to know dinosaur names really well as a kid, probably around that same age, because I was still very much into dinosaurs. And I guess dinosaurs are still cool. I never would say I phased out of that. But can I remember the names of all those dinosaurs like I could as a kid, where I had, like, dinosaur books and, again, had them memorized? I can't remember that nowadays. I'm a bitter old man now. But all right, so moving on to question 2. Ranch or blue cheese?
Ugh. I don't like either one of those.
Interesting.
If I had to pick one, I think I would lean more towards ranch. Like, I can tolerate it. I don't like it, but it's not... Like, blue cheese will make me gag. I just can't even look at it. It's disgusting.
That's the correct answer there. That's the main reason I asked this, is... Because blue cheese is disgusting.
It is. It's so creepy.
It's so pungent, like the smell and the taste. It's just such a strong taste that it just overpowers.
Yeah.
Even in small doses, because I know some people have told me, oh, we don't, you just put little crumbles or blue cheese, like, dressing and stuff. No. Mm-mm. I don't want to taste like I'm eating, like, an old moldy sock.
Oh. Well, and the thing is, too, and I know this is going to sound really weird, I am super skeptical about dairy products anyway. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know, like, just dairy in general creeps me out.
I was not aware of this.
Well, I remember it all started when I was, like, not even in middle school. We were reading about cows and, like, where milk comes from and all of that stuff, and I was just mortified. I'm like, that is so gross. Why would I want that?
It is weird, because surely, the first humans or early humans, at what point did they look at, cows and other animals and think,
I'm gonna try that.
Yeah, I'm gonna try that.
That's weird.
And maybe because, like, we're mammals, maybe there was, like, some kind of weird understanding where we knew they were mammals too, so drinking their milk would not be harmful. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But even still, it's an odd... And it makes me wonder, like, what the other process of elimination was back in those early days where people were like, okay, what's edible, what creatures are tameable, and which ones are not. So imagine, like, Neanderthals going into a cave to be like, all right, so we've successfully tamed wolves into dogs, cats into cats that are less ferocious. What about bear? And then the Neanderthals go into the cave, they get mauled, and they're like, okay, so that didn't work. But that was just a first try. Let's go back to the drawing board, we'll go back to camp, discuss it over the fire. All right, let's try, maybe we attack the babies first? Then I imagine it was just a whole process of them just getting mauled, and they're like, okay, guys, we got to cut our losses. We've lost half the tribe to just trying to tame bears.
We came here, so we tried.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then and then we have cows.
Yeah. Because they're not aggressive enough. Let's just hang around these, and maybe they'll give us their milk, and maybe we can eat them, and they'll taste delicious.
Well, and like, what were they thinking when they saw that this liquid that they wanted was white and thick? Like, why would you want to ingest that? That's just it's so weird. I can't get past it.
Yeah, either, again, people were very desperate, which they may very well have been, because, man, I can't imagine living during that time where you're probably lucky to make it to, like, 10. And by 11, it's like, all right, son, you're a grown man. I expect you to carry on the family tradition now. Here's my spear. And then they get mauled by a bear because they tried to tame them. Right, so moving on to question number 3. If I came into possession of the One Ring of Power, would you join my fellowship? And if yes, what would you offer? Because, Aragorn had offered his sword, Legolas his bow, Gimli his axe.
Ooh, I would absolutely join because I love a good adventure and
Yes.
shenanigans are the best. And as far as what I could offer, I don't know that I could offer a lot. Sarcasm.
Sarcasm goes a long way.
It
helps cheer up the mood.
Mm-hmm.
It can. Other times it can,
Just be rude.
Yeah. So hopefully the more uplifting, comical, and whimsical
I mean, I would
sarcasm.
call them pretty peppy.
Okay.
So, it can be the bubbly kind of sarcasm.
Okay.
Or at least a duality.
Okay, that'll work. So if any of the future fellowship members gets, pierced by 3 arrows, you'll be the one to kind of come in with
The
like a nice
sarcasm.
Yeah, the sarcasm. A
I've
nice
got
witty
some
remark.
Epic one-liners. Yeah. I'm also really good at doing the jobs that nobody else wants to do, mostly because I get voted to do them.
Yeah, that
And I
happened,
just go with it.
That happened a lot when we worked together. But okay, so those are the hard ones out of the way. Now time for the easy question.
Okay.
What's the meaning of life?
What was it? 42 or 24?
42.
42.
Yeah. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
There you go.
Yes. Good answer. Alright, so now the questions are out of the way. I feel like the audience now has a good feel for who you are as a person.
For what's about to happen.
Yes, and for what's about to happen. Because clearly in just the 4 questions, we went on several different tangents. So expect more of that and much more lengthier tangents now that the questions are out of the way. Which actually, you brought questions.
I did. I'm
the
so
first guest
excited.
to come prepared. So why don't you start with the first question that pops off to you?
Okay. Oh, well, you really liked the pizza box thing.
Yes.
So, give me just a second.
Because I reviewed the questions beforehand and approved them.
Here it is. What is something that you irrationally hate or just really, like, it just really irritates you?
I mean, blue cheese is one of them. People who like blue cheese.
I mean, I would argue that's fairly rational, though. Personally, I mean, it is creepy, and it is molding, and, like, technically, I get it, like, all cheese molds, and...
Yeah, because every cheese is technically a mold,
Exactly.
but it's like you're just adding mold on top of the mold, and it's gross.
There was someone that just thought, you know what, I like more the mold side of the cheese. Let's have that.
It's like, I want to just sit this out for a few days and see what happens. And they tried it, and for whatever ungodly reason, decided, this is fine, this is edible. No, you fool, it's not! It's gross.
Yeah, so I mean, I would argue that's fairly rational.
Okay.
Personally.
I don't know, that was the first thing to come to mind, because, again, I really just do not like blue cheese, and it really does baffle me that people go out of their way, like, they genuinely enjoy it.
Yeah.
I don't think you all should be allowed to vote. There, I said it.
Or at least make important decisions.
Yeah.
Like going outside of your house.
Yeah. But I don't know, if you're putting blue cheese on something, I gotta question your life decisions.
Yeah. And, like, you definitely don't get to pick the menu.
No.
Where you go to
No.
eat when you go out.
I wouldn't trust their opinions.
On anything. Well, like, it could be something as simple as, like, you just really hate how they are lengthening the ads that play now.
Oh, so I guess sort of like that is, so like, I watch a lot of YouTube, and honestly I watch more anime on YouTube than I do most like regular TV. But one thing that really irks me is one of two things. Either one, where they're playing an ad and it's super short, it's like 10 seconds, but it gives you the option to skip it at like the 5-second mark. It's like,
oh yeah, no, I love that.
But it's only 10 seconds. Now if this was like because sometimes the ads are like 60 minutes or more and gives you the option to skip it maybe midway through. So yes, please give me that option to skip. I don't want to sit through 60 minutes worth of ads.
Oh my gosh.
But if it's only 10 seconds, why even add the skip button? I'm only able to skip 5 seconds of the 10. Or what I think bothers me more though is when it'll say
you can skip it.
You
they start the countdown,
and you can't
skip it. Yes.
Don't advertise that I can skip if I can't skip it.
That is genuinely irritating. I agree.
Especially when it's like super long ads, like 50 seconds or more. No, don't give me false hope. Don't advertise that I can skip this and then I have to sit through the entire ads.
And I think one of the reasons why it is so frustrating, that particular one, is because it reminds me of, was it Windows? Back in the day where they had like the older computers and they had the icon that would like jump across the screen.
Yes.
And it's like everybody was waiting for the longest time for it to like hit the corner and it never did. And it was like this myth. It reminds me a lot of that. Like, just the anticipation, the frustration.
Again, for younger people, that probably sounds so foreign to them. But yes, that was a thing. There were a lot of weird things back in the day. But yes, that frustrates me, and again, it shouldn't, because I watch ads before. I grew up watching ads, on TV. They were inescapable. And now even on streaming services, they're adding ads, which, yes, I get it because, the streaming model is kind of a weird... I don't know how they make money off of that. But even still, it's like if I'm paying the highest tier for Amazon Prime or whatever, get those ads away from me. I don't want ads if I'm already paying you the top tier for the subscription service.
I feel like that's a fair trade-off because what they price things nowadays is like pretty outrageous. So it's like the least you can do is just spare me the agony.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would agree with that. One that like really just makes me irrationally just frustrated is when people are trying to sound interesting and clever and they come up with like this list of things that don't make any sense. They're just like random things about life. For example, the pizza box. I've had so many people ask, or they like argue that it doesn't make sense that if you have a pizza that's round, why isn't the box round as well? Why is it square? Because! And I don't understand why this is just like such a weird thing to understand. Like, I don't feel like it's that hard to deduce. Like, when you look at it, they have corners. The square does.
Yes.
Because the pizza is round, so you can get to it. If it was just all a square, you'd have to make the square bigger, and then it would just slide around, and then you'd have to, like, dig in. It would be a whole process that's unnecessary and very frustrating.
Yeah.
But people still argue that it should be round.
I mean, look, if you want a round pizza in a round box, by all means do that. Just, you're probably going to take a few extra minutes getting it out of the actual pizza box. Again, unless it's a much larger, or maybe not much larger, but it would have to be slightly larger, so that way you've got room to get your spatula or your hands in there to scoop it up. But as you pointed out, it's going to like move around a whole lot in transportation, and then you're just going to have a messy pizza, which, granted, it's hard to go wrong with pizza, but I still want a pizza where like all the toppings are intact as much as possible, instead of, there's a sausage over there, there's a pepperoni over here, and...
So then it just turns into like a make-it-yourself
basically.
in the beginning.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and there would be a way to reverse that, I suppose. Like, you could have a square pizza in a round box.
True.
People wouldn't like that either. Because then they'd be like, why do I have a square pizza?
Yeah.
if the box
It's like,
isn't
well, for the
square.
same concept, you fools.
Exactly. Which, I think this just goes all the way back to, like, what people were, like, learning in kindergarten with the shapes. Certain shapes go together, others do not.
Yeah.
And so, rather than just realizing that things get a little more complicated as you get older, we're just holding on to that elementary side of things. It just, I think, probably aggravates people that it's like, it wasn't true. What they were taught was a lie.
Could be it. We just haven't mentally evolved since grade school. Which, I mean, I don't know, simpler times. I miss just learning about shapes and playing with, like, clay and Play-Doh and nap time and recess.
Math was not involved.
Yeah, math wasn't really involved outside of your very, very basic of, like, hey, what's 1 plus 1? 2. Yay! Good job! All right, nap time, it's like, yes! Killed that question. I definitely deserve that nap.
Crushed it. And things are just so much more exciting when you're a kid, too. Like even having, like, lunch.
Oh, yeah, it was the greatest thing ever cause, I mean, again, kindergarten was not difficult by any means, but it was still the coolest thing ever where it's like, all right, guys, you've learned a lot about letters, a little bit of math, time to go to lunch, and then after lunch recess, it's like, yes! Oh my god, this is the best day ever!
Right, it was so exciting. And it's like now as an adult, you get up, you go to work, and you wait for lunchtime, but not because you're excited about it, it's just so you can sit down.
Yeah. Or just escape the day, like the monotony of the day. You're like, man, lunch can't get here soon enough. I'm not even hungry. I need to escape.
Go sit in my car.
Yeah. So I usually always have my headphones with me, so that way, I mean, sometimes, like, I don't mind to sit there and chat with my coworkers. Other times I'm just like, no, I just need I need to just drown out everything, decompress for half an hour, and then hopefully I can come off my lunch and not want to just start shouting at every person that I see.
This actually leads in perfectly to my next question, which is, what is fun for you as an adult? Because as you get older, obviously, the things you look forward to and you genuinely just enjoy, even if nobody else finds it interesting or fascinating, like, you just genuinely, like, revel in this.
So outside of, like, the main things that I do look forward to doing, like, whenever I go traveling and stuff, that's obviously the big things that I think most people could probably rationalize. Yeah, I can see why traveling, and going on hiking trips is fun. But when I'm not doing that, because that's, unfortunately very few times in the year that I have that luxury to go traveling, whether it be domestic or international, I love to just have days where I don't really do anything. And there are times, like, especially now that I'm in my 30s, and sometimes it's more difficult to socialize with friends because, obviously we're all very busy. Most of us are, like, married and have kids. So whenever we do get a chance to meet up and hang out, even if it's for, like, just grabbing drinks or getting dinner, I look forward to that so much.
Yeah.
I think it was 2 years ago, I was talking with a couple of my friends and hadn't seen them in a while, and they were like, hey, you should come over for dinner. I was like, yes! That sounds awesome! And for 2 weeks after that, I just was looking forward. I was like, man, Friday can't get here soon enough. I just can't wait to hang out and just have dinner with my friends. We didn't even go out to a restaurant. They just invited me over to their apartment. And, like, everything was homemade too, so that made it, like, extra special. Yeah, but, like, little things like that where, again, especially if it's friends that I don't get to see very often, and we do have the chance. I was like, hey, I'm free on Saturday. What are you doing? It's like, I'm free too! What do we do? I don't know. Let's pick a time and we'll figure something out. I feel like a child again, where you get excited whenever you have a friend over, even though you've seen them all throughout the week at school. You're like, today's Saturday.
It's in a different setting.
Yes, it's in a different setting.
And now you can go and imagine that you're going on these grand adventures.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just your backyard.
So little things like that. And again, I guess I'm starting to sound like a bitter old person, because I feel like that's a lot of times my parents and, grandparents, that's the kind of stuff that they enjoy. I now get that. But yeah, I don't know. And I think that's not necessarily a bad thing, too, to enjoy the the simple things in life. Just, hanging out with, like, friends, family, or just having a date where you don't really do anything. You just relax, veg out, and... Because, again, so much of adult life is... Boring, or you're always, like, just on the move at work or trying to do something, and it's... When you have that date where you don't have anything planned, you're like, this is so nice. And but at the same time, there are times where I'll have those days set out where I intentionally am like, I'm not even going to leave the house. I'm going to stay in the house all day. And then I'll get a message with friends, be like, hey, you want to come out? And then I'm debating, yeah, I do want to go out because I like to hang out with you all. But at the same time, I was dead set on not doing anything today. And then I have to struggle of what do I decide?
Well, and you're also an introvert too, so
yes,
like,
so I'm very introverted. Yes, that is how I recharge. If I don't have a day or days to like just decompress, I can socialize, but I'm not at 100%. Like I'm probably just going to be sitting there in the corner, not contributing a whole lot to the conversation. So like I can probably do 3 days max of social interactions with like friends and family. After that third day, I'm like, no.
Oh wow.
Like I can't.
See, I am an extrovert, so like I tend to recharge with people. I think it's the situations that just wear me out sometimes. Like not so much like the interacting with people, but like what you're doing. So like work, having a ton of projects that you've got to get done like all at one time, and you've got like a lot of pressure going on. It's like that is exhausting. Not necessarily the people involved or the fact that there are a lot of people. It's just that.
I'm always envious of extroverts where you do feed off other people because you're essentially like vampires. Like non-violent vampires where you can just go into a crowd of people like, yes, my people. It's like, okay, you're happy. Let me feed off that happiness. You're a little tipsy. Let me feed off that tipsiness. Like you will just thrive in those environments where that terrifies me. Like I like to go out with, again, like have like a few drinks or something like that with friends, but I prefer it when the bar is not super crowded and busy. Because one, I like being able to have a conversation and not have to shout because there's music going or it's just super crowded. And also, again, I just don't like crowds, so anytime we go to a bar or something, it's usually a little earlier in the evening, around 6 or 7 before it gets super packed. And I'm like, yeah, we can hang out, but we can also relax because it's not super crowded, not super noisy. But anytime there's like
not too hot, not too cold.
Exactly.
That's right.
Because I remember one time I went out on St. Patrick's Day for like to a bar in Lexington. So like all the bars, of course, were just filled to the brim with people.
Packed.
Yeah, everyone was drunk by probably noon. It's like we got there at like, I don't know, 1, and we were just walking around downtown trying to find a bar that wasn't jam-packed or filled with people puking all over the street. And I immediately was like, ooh, I was super excited to go out on St. Patrick's Day and have a couple beers. I'm immediately regretting this decision.
Yeah, now, with that said, I mean, there are certain types of people that do just drain me, even after just spending an hour with them, and I'm like, I just want to go be alone now. I can't. And funny enough, I'm not going to name names, but a lot of them I am related to.
Oh, okay.
They are exhausting people. I think it's I don't know what it is necessarily, like specifically, like if I could just break it down to one thing. I think a lot of it has to do with like, there are some people that are fun dramatic and live in their own worlds, and then there are people that are just like nauseatingly dramatic, and it just, because you have people that worry and freak out over or get upset out of something just so benign and small and insignificant, like not getting their lawn chairs on time, and they have a whole list of reasons why that is just like really ruined their day, and that's funny to me. Because I like to sit and think, what would that be like to live your life in such a way that, you ignore all of the horrible things that are going on worldwide to I'm really upset.
War in Ukraine? Who cares about the Ukrainians? How do they buy lawn chairs?
Now I can't sit outside in a chair. I have to sit in my other chairs.
That's not lawn appropriate.
Like, can you imagine just the bliss that your life must be by worrying about those things instead of, things that matter?
Or it's just absolute chaos because they worry about the little things and they just keep piling up.
True.
In which case, good God, that person maybe needs a lot of therapy. If they're creating a lot of drama, or there's a lot of drama surrounding, again, like kind of trivial things like that.
Yeah.
Maybe go see a doctor or a therapist. Just vent, vent some of that frustration out.
Or come and find me. I would be happy to listen.
Yeah.
I think it's really funny. Probably not the best way to advertise being someone's therapist, but at least I will be invested. But the other type of just frustrating and dramatic that just really drains me is the people that are just so negative.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter what good thing happened, they're going to ruin it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's they just really focus on themselves, of course,
Mm-hmm.
to an extent, but it's they have nothing positive to say.
Yeah, or, and granted, kind of comes from the internet culture we live in nowadays, where there is so much negativity. But I feel like the greatest thing in the world, something along the lines of world hunger could be ended. There's going to be that one person that's world hunger's overrated, or curing world hunger's overrated. What? Come on, man!
Why?
It's world hunger gone for good, completely solved.
Yes.
Why do you have to be the one person that is just being contrary?
Speaking of, another type of person that just really zaps me is the kind of person that just turns any and every conversation into a political rant.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that's exhausting.
Because again, I don't mind having a political conversation, especially so long as it's civil and
Absolutely.
they're not everything turns into politics.
Yes.
Because not everything needs to be turned into politics.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's just nice to talk about normal things.
Yeah, just have a conversation for the fun of it.
So yeah, sometimes that can be nauseating too, and it seems like that's harder to avoid those kind of conversations in the current political landscape we're living in.
Everybody wants to talk about politics all the time.
Yeah, and again, I get it, but at the same time, as politically aware as I am now compared to where I was, even just a few years ago, I sometimes want to just turn my brain off and not talk about politics because, good God, that just...
It's so much!
Yeah, it's so much, all at once. It's overwhelming. So I'm kind of weird when it comes to the people that I'm around. So obviously, again, very introverted. So if I'm around people that I know and I'm comfortable with, then that's when I can kind of be a bit more. Maybe come off as more extroverted.
Yeah, more outgoing.
Yeah, more outgoing. It's probably a better way of putting it. And then there's some friends where they can kind of pull that. Even if it's just say the two of us were hanging out, they can kind of pull that, I guess, inner non-bitter old hermit man.
The inner child.
Yeah, the inner child out of me. And I'm okay, yeah, we can just, walk around and have fun. Sure, why not? And I feel, again, I'm not as I guess, cynical when I see crowds of people where I'd normally be no.
Yeah, it doesn't feel straining.
Yeah. But there are other people, and again, some of which are friends who I love dearly, but they're the very boisterous extroverts where
oh yeah
they want to drag you on all their adventures, which I appreciate. I really do.
Yeah.
But and I don't think it's they're intentionally trying to make me feel uncomfortable. It's just that's their nature to be.
Right. They don't necessarily read the room.
Yeah, they either
don't know the audience.
Yes, and so they're very just the boisterous extrovert, and that takes a lot out of me because it's look, I love you to death, but I can only deal with you in so many doses and in so many situations before I have to just I gotta bail.
Yeah.
Because that
is very exerting.
Yes, and extroverts, they really are like vampires. They're just draining my life force, and then I just feel like I'm done. No offense to extroverts.
I was about to say, so Are you going to be able to, like, go through an entire podcast with me?
Yeah. Absolutely.
As I just drain.
I mean, if I if I faint midway through, you all will understand that my life has been drained, and I guess you will be the new host of this podcast.
What fun we'll have. Well, going back to the things that are just fun as an adult that are kind of inconsequential, honestly, I really love car rides. I'm like a dog. Like, my dad can just be going to the store, and everyone knows. They just have to say, I'm going to go somewhere, and I will jump in the passenger seat. It's like, yes, let's do this. And, like, one of our favorite things to do, because my dad is also an extrovert, sometimes when we just, like, don't really want to go home, we'll just drive around different neighborhoods and then judge them for their decor. Like, oh, that's actually a really pretty house. It's a shame they live there. Like, they did a terrible job with those flowers. That was awful. We have the best time. So, you know, talking about the little things, I really enjoy car rides.
Do you all take a lot of trips? Because I actually, I like driving out in the countryside. Like, those are some of my favorite drives, just because that to me is very therapeutic and relaxing. I don't love driving on, like, the interstates and highways and stuff like that because it's just the hustle and bustle. Not my jam.
Too many people. And
so many of them don't know how to drive. Not to say that I'm a perfect driver either. Like, I'm sure they have the exact same thoughts towards me.
Yeah, but they're so much worse.
Yeah, they are. They're the worst. And they're probably all extroverts. But yeah, no. That's more my speed of just taking a leisurely stroll too, through the countryside.
Walks are very exciting as well, yes.
Yeah, again, that's why I'm so excited for fall. I
know!
That's my kind of weather, hoodie weather.
Yes! Long sleeves, jackets, not heavy jackets, the light jackets.
Yeah, just light jackets.
Yes, I completely agree.
And I don't know if it's because I'm such a pasty pale ginger and afraid of the sun, because it burns me so easily, but I really do feel like fall and early spring, I feel more invigorated. Whereas like the kind of weather we're having now,
oh my gosh,
is so oppressively hot and humid that I don't want to leave the house.
This ties in perfectly to the next question.
Ooh, yay!
Which is controversial opinions about the seasons.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't like the summer.
I don't either. Thank you. It's so overrated. Everybody talks about how they hate the cold. They don't like the cold. Summer's the best. It's fun. And it's not. Because I was having this conversation with my dad the other day. I was like, you know what? I'm going to say it because no one else will. Summer's boring. Because unless you plan a vacation,
right,
there's nothing to do. Because if you don't take a vacation, then you just go to work and it's hot.
Exactly. And unless, so again, most people, in the summer, they go to vacation towards the beach, which again, as I've previously stated, I'm a very pasty pale Irish ginger, so sun and heat does not go well with me, like, at all. I got sunburned in Ireland, the one country in the world where I thought I wouldn't need sunblock.
That is pretty impressive.
Yes, so that goes to show how pale I am. So, 90-degree weather, hot, humid, no thanks. Also, I don't like beaches, or I like cold beaches. So like New England area or like Pacific Northwest or, parts of like Europe, like the UK, Ireland, where most people don't think of, I want to go on a holiday to a beach in Ireland. That's why I like those beaches, because not a lot of people, are there compared to, say, Florida or California.
The reason you don't necessarily like beaches, is it because there's a lot of people there, or?
A little bit, but also, so one, I'm not a very strong swimmer, so I don't go, like, if I go to go to the beach, I'll get in the water, but since I'm not a strong swimmer, I'm kind of just like about waist deep, maybe chest deep, and it's like I guess this is kind of nice. So I'm just awkward on the beach because I can't tan, so it's not like I can lay on the beach and tan. I can't go swimming because I'm not a very strong swimmer, and I don't trust myself to go swimming in the ocean. Because knowing my luck, I'd be having a nice swim, and then a current comes in and swoops me out, and then I'm like, well, I guess I'll die, because I don't think I'm a strong enough swimmer to go back to beach, go back to shore.
You enjoyed your vacation.
Yeah. It's like, bye, everyone. Hopefully I'll just get eaten by a shark, and it'll be over really quick.
Ooh. I don't think those usually go very
They,
quickly.
they don't. But again, that's just me accepting my fate at that point. If I get like swept away in the ocean, it's like, well, guess I'll die now. Either I'll drown or I'll get eaten by something.
See, I really love the beach.
Like, I like being by the coast,
Uh-huh.
but again, most beaches are hot and sunny,
Yes.
which I do not like. And that's why I like cold beaches, because again, most people aren't there.
Mhm.
They're usually not crowded. I can leisurely stroll across the beach.
I would agree with you. I do think that cold beaches are very underrated because they're very pretty.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's why. And also, for me, and obviously I'm sure I'm in the minority, where I prefer like spring and fall, because to me that's perfect weather for outdoor stuff.
Yes.
Like I can go for a walk, I can go hiking, I can go kayaking or something, whatever it may be. And, you know, if I get hot, I can just take my hoodie off or my jacket, and I still feel comfortable. Whereas in the summertime, I can't just go around streaking because that's very much frowned upon. So
Speaking of not being outgoing and being more introverted, I would imagine that would be quite the feat for you.
yeah. So yeah, summertime you there's only so much you can do to cool off.
Oh my god. Yes.
Whereas again in the wintertime, yeah, even if it's bitterly cold, you can just
You
layers.
can always put more on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, I don't mind the cold. I actually get hot super easy, so even if it's
So do
like
I.
30
Yeah.
degrees, I can
It's
wear
comfortable.
I can wear a hoodie and be relatively comfortable in 30 something degrees.
I completely agree. Well, and another thing is too, there's so much more to do when it gets colder. Like when you hit fall, it is the beginning of like a long, drawn out span of really fun like holidays and things to get into, like festivities.
Yeah.
You've got like Halloween.
My favorite holiday.
Yeah, there's so much to do there. You watch scary movies, you go to like festivals, there's pumpkin carving, which I am personally like a huge fan of. It is so much fun. Just like all kinds of things to get into. And like you said, also fall is like a really wonderful time to go hiking and stuff because it's so pretty.
Yeah. Or again, just like drive around with your windows down.
Exactly.
And just be like, it's just comfortable.
The smells, the colors, the food, it's all just wonderful. And then when you get past that, you get into Thanksgiving, which I understand like a lot of people don't like Thanksgiving. I really enjoy it. I think it is so much fun. It is the one day you get to just like sit down and have a ton of food.
Oh yeah, it's the one day where you can eat till you burst and no one's gonna judge you, because you know sometimes if you eat too much, people will be like, oh, did you really need to eat 2 cheeseburgers or whatever you're eating? Which I probably wouldn't recommend eating 2 cheeseburgers.
Dude,
at
I would
all
be so sick.
for anyone. But yeah, Thanksgiving, and also I feel like if there were more universal holidays like Thanksgiving, like especially if like the world could somehow collectively decide one day we all just have a Thanksgiving type day.
Yeah.
No one would want to pick fights with each other because they're just exhausted from going into a food coma.
Yes.
It's like, look, I hate your guts, but we can war a week from now. It's like, cool, sounds great, because I'm just wiped.
Time out.
Yeah. Also, I really like Thanksgiving because again, I like family get-togethers, and one of our traditions is we play board games.
Yeah, we do too. We love like watching movies, games, whole 9 yards.
Yeah. So that's another reason why I like it too. Is just after we feast and just veg out for a while, we eat more food because
why not?
What's the way you do, or at least that's what my family does. And then we play board games.
It's a fun time. It's something that I look forward to like every year.
Yeah.
And then it's like after that, and then you go into Christmas. And I've met so many people that just really hate that holiday. I don't get it. I love everything about it. It is so much fun. You get to go find stuff for people. It snows, hopefully. Like, that's always very exciting when it does. You've got the colors. You have trees, which I am obsessed with trees. I love the pine trees. They're so much fun. Just all of it. It is great. And one of the things, like, my family does is we always go through and we look at, like, everyone's Christmas lights.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we used
like,
to do
everywhere.
that. Yeah, we used to do that all the time. I guess because, we're all adults and it's hard to get us all together. But, yeah, I remember as a kid, usually after... That's another thing we'd usually do either after Thanksgiving or just around Christmas time is We just hop in the car and, drive around neighborhoods looking at, all the lights. Because some people, they go all out and they do really well with all the decorations.
Yeah.
Other times, some people, they go all out and it just
Not
looks
at
tacky.
all.
Then other people where you can tell they just did the bare minimum, it's like, here's a snowman. Here's a spirit.
Right.
It's like, okay.
And then everything else just looks so sad and bland.
Yeah.
It's like poor Frosty just out there with his feelings by himself. But anyway, it's very fun. I like colder seasons. And honestly, even spring, I think there's still a lot more to do in spring than there is in summer.
Yeah, and so one of my, again, kind of going back to the simpler things, one of my favorite things is I love both, because usually right before it transitions into the new season, especially spring and fall, I love that first, spring rain.
Yes, I agree too. I love the rainy season.
Yes. Yeah. Or, again, I think my favorite might be fall, though. The first...
Oh, yeah.
Rain of the fall, where, it's usually fairly warm, it's starting to kind of cool off, but then we have that first rain, and then that's it's officially fall, baby. It's hoodie weather and flannel.
Oh, I love flannel.
Because it's, again, that's another reason why I like the fall and winter is my flannel.
Iconic. The perfect pairing.
Exactly.
Fall and flannel. So... Okay. What do you find difficult about interacting with people?
So, again, I'm very introverted, and I'm also very neurotic and awkward, which is just a winning combination all around. So if it's, again, I'm better at interacting with people if I'm already around people that I know and I'm comfortable with. Mm-hmm. But if, say, I'm in a room filled with people I've never met before or I do not know, I'm overthinking because I'm just mentally all sorts of thoughts going through my mind, and I'm like, okay, how should I start a conversation? What do normal people talk about? Because a lot of people will initiate conversation with weather, and I hate, honestly, that's another thing too, is I hate small talk. Mm-hmm. But to initiate conversations, most people do small talk because that's a safe bet. Even though I prefer if someone just jumped as hey, what do you think about philosophy? It's oh, interesting. Okay, let's talk.
Right. It's if you want to have an interesting conversation, ask an interesting question.
Yeah.
Be weird. Get out there.
But I hate when, again, you'll be, I don't know, in an elevator or something like that, or actually what's worse is, I don't know, you're in any kind of public setting and someone will be oh yeah, how's the weather? Window. Right there. Sunny.
Behold.
Why are you asking me? You have eyes. Presumably, you're not blind. You can see how the weather is. Again, I understand the whole point of small talk, but I don't like it. So that's another thing too. Is I try to think of maybe a witty thing to start the conversation, but my sense of humor doesn't always work for people because I'm very weird. So it's okay, think of something funny, and then I'll try to say something no, that's right. No, don't say that. Mm-hmm. So then I just sit there like a weird guy in the corner until someone initiates a conversation with me, 90% of the time.
Yeah, I mean, I could see where that would cause some difficulty in approaching people and interacting with them in general.
Because another thing too, we were fortunate enough, when we started working with each other, that because I think the manager introduced us. He was like, "Oh, you're both nerds. You'll probably get along."
Well, he didn't actually introduce us though. So what happened was he told me that you were a huge Lord of the Rings fan.
Okay, yes, I remember that.
He was like, watch this, and he deliberately mispronounced...
Okay, that's right, because in the break room, Desolation of Smaug was on.
Yeah.
So yeah, I remember that now, because he came up to me, he's like, hey, did you know the Desolation of Smaug is on? I'm like, Smaug, it's pronounced Smaug.
Yeah, and you started talking about it, and I was like, we're going to be best friends. Yeah. This is awesome.
But that kind of helped to where I was like, okay, I feel like we're probably good. Other people, though, I've told that I've worked with who I guess they, for whatever reason, thought I was, like, angry all the time.
You told me that after the fact, and I thought that was also really funny, too, because you said that people were kind of, like, afraid to approach you.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know how. I'm 5'5". I'm not exactly the most intimidating person in the world. But apparently I have, like, I guess this constant scowl, or... I don't know, that's just my face. I'm not trying to emote good or bad. That's just... I guess a scowl is my default face.
I've honestly never noticed it before, and it's funny because I don't know. It takes a lot for me to be intimidated by people. But I just never thought about it. I just started talking, which is what I normally do with people. And I remember you telling me that after the fact, because I was like, it just never even crossed my mind. I was just like, I heard you liked Lord of the Rings, and I was like, oh yeah, your friend.
Yeah.
Like, it just never occurred to me to, like, actually stop and, like, think about it or break down that situation.
Yeah, no, like, I remember there's this one girl that I worked with where, I think it was, like, after we'd kind of gotten to know each other, because we were closing together, and she's like, yeah, I'm going to be honest, like, I thought you were kind of an asshole when I first met you, because you were just, you didn't really talk to anybody. Except for, like, usually, like, you know, Daniel I'd talk to because I'd worked with him for a while. And, you know, other people that I knew and worked with, I would talk to them.
Yeah.
But, yeah, again, new people, I would, you know, maybe exchange pleasantries. But, again, I'd always be like, I don't know how to start conversations with people. So I usually just never do start conversations.
Yeah.
But, yeah, she was kind of like, yeah, I thought you were kind of an asshole. But, yeah, then actually I started to get to know you. I was like, oh, okay, he's not so bad. And I was like, really? Is that what everyone thinks about me?
That is so... I mean, like, I feel bad for you, but that's really funny. Especially, like, once you get to know your personality, it's like, I don't understand how people could just, like, assume that. Like, it's so obvious.
I don't get it either, but I guess it's that... I've been told it's a scowl that I have on my face.
You know, to be fair, though, I grew up with a lot of people that have, like, a resting bee face. So... it could just be that I'm, like, almost tone deaf to it. It doesn't even register. With people, I don't find it difficult to approach them because I usually just end up asking, like, questions. It's like, okay, I want to get to know this person.
Yeah.
So, like, let's throw in some interesting things here. Like, are you a pillow or a blanket person? You know, just break the ice. Like, be weird. And for the most part, it works. There are some people that do get really weirded out with me.
But that's a good way of sorting out, okay,
exactly.
who are my people?
Yes. It's like, okay. And then you get to have fun because you've built that reputation for yourself, so they think you're weird. So now you can have fun with it.
True.
Like, all of the things you wouldn't do with normal people, it's like, I can experiment with this person.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I should do that more often. Because again, sometimes my humor can be a little, like, dry and sarcastic, which if people don't know me, they think I'm being, like, deadly serious.
Yes.
Because there's one girl again that I used to work with. I forget what we were talking about, but I just on the fly told her, it's like, yeah, I'm licensed private detective in my free time. And I said it with, like, a straight face, and I was just as a joke.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, really?
That's hilarious.
And so I was tempted, like, yes, and just to see how far I could take that.
Well, yeah, why wouldn't you?
But I was like, no, I shouldn't, because she was like one of the, like, sweetest people, but obviously very
gullible.
Gullible. Especially if you said something with a straight face, there was a good chance she was going to believe you.
Yeah. So it just felt mean.
A little bit, but then other times I kind of. Other times I'm tempted to just, again, roll with it and be like, I want to see how long I can keep this whole farce going.
And I feel like that's fair. That's fun. Speaking of things as an adult that bring you joy.
Yeah, occasionally messing with people.
It is such a good time. There should be more people that do it.
So I think I told you about the time that... and I don't remember if you worked with him or not. Do you remember Jeremiah? I don't remember. This might have been after you left.
Okay.
He was like a young kid. Like, I think he was homeschooled, so he was only like 17. But he used to work the truck a lot.
I don't think so. I think that was after.
Okay. So, anyways, like he was a very sheltered, like homeschooled kid, very Christian and stuff like that. Super nice. Not a great worker though, unfortunately. But anyways, so another one of those people where like he was just very gullible and would again say anything with a straight face and he would believe you. And so me and Chance, I forget what gave me the idea, but I was like, hey Chance, what do you think? Do you think we could convince Jeremiah that I worship Satan?
I remember you telling me about this. That was so funny.
And I remember Chance just laughed. He's like, I don't know, but we're about to find out. So he walks away.
Yeah.
And so then, I don't know, like the next day he comes back. He's like, yeah, so I told him that you worship Satan. And he's like, bro, I had my suspicions. Which was... So what was funny is, and this could not have been timed perfectly.
Yeah.
So the day before, we were working the truck. And I was helping in the men's department, like, you know, put out merchandise. Mm-hmm. And so my wireless earbuds died, like, midway through, like, unloading.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, I still want to listen to music. So I just started blaring my heavy metal music. So I just, you know, so I'd occasionally, like, walk past him and, you know, kind of like, oh, hey, you know, do you need help putting that up or something? So I guess he heard my heavy metal music and just assumed that I was, you know, listening to, like, satanic music. Because he brought that up to Chance. So when Chance told me that, I just started busting up laughing. I was like, "Oh my god, that's perfect! A sign from God Himself, or Satan." Yeah. So then I was like, "Perfect! I just want to see how long we can keep this going."
Yeah.
So I like told some other coworkers just to kind of keep them in the loop. It's like, "Hey, so by the way, I'm trying to convince Jeremiah that I worship Satan. Just roll with it." And they're like, "Love it." But they kept wanting to go extreme, like, "Oh, you should tell them that you worship, you know, like sacrifice babies." Like, no. I just want to be like a very wholesome, satanic worshiper, you know. So like every time I see him, like, "Hey, Jeremiah," you know, give him a friendly wave. It's like I don't want to give the stereotype of like all, you know, death and destruction satanic worshipers.
Well, you know, and I think that's where people trip up with the whole pranking others thing, because they either go too high or too low. Like, and you have to have the prank sweet spot.
Yeah.
Like, it's in the middle. You can't go too extreme, otherwise it is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Or it's like it gets very out of hand very quickly. Or people just don't go far enough, and so it's just not funny.
Yeah.
You know, it's like stupid stuff.
So as far as I know, because he wasn't a good worker, so he didn't make it through the holiday season, as far as I know, he left still thinking I worship Satan.
That's ingenious.
And so I hope that one day I'll see him just out in the street and just be like, "Jeremiah, how's it going, buddy?" It's like, you want to come to like my satanic church? We're having a bake sale.
Oh, and you play D&D too, so you could like really sell
just,
with that too. Like, you could actually bring him to, like, you could call it a gathering, and then just have him like sit in on a D&D like session.
That'd be perfect. It's like, all right, now if you roll bad, you're gonna summon a demon. So pressure's on, Jeremiah. Roll.
10 out of 10 would recommend. I would go with that.
But yeah, that was one of those few times where I just rolled with it, because it's like, what harm could come of this? Because I was like, maybe he'll eventually find out, and it's like, yeah, I was just messing with the man. It was all in good fun. Because again, I wasn't doing it out of malicious intent. I was just He was super gullible, and it was fun.
Well, and if it did backfire, which the backfire would be that, like you said, he found out, and it doesn't hurt anyone.
Yeah, exactly. But everyone kept asking, it's like, so what if he does believe this and asks to like go to your church? I'm like, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
One step at a time.
Yeah, one step at a time.
Oh, that's fantastic. I mean, I've pulled quite a few pranks.
And that was one thing that you talked about a lot in the last time you were here. Some very elaborate pranks with your younger brother Evan, which I'd like to bring him on too at some point. But good God, the amount of like elaborate planning that you did for some of those pranks is very commendable.
Thank you.
And the fact that you were playing the long game too. It wasn't just a quick like a gotcha joke. It was like, ha, gotcha. Like, you know, you're embarrassed now because, you know, we pulled the prank. It's like the scheming and the plotting that
and
went
getting
into
other people involved.
Yeah, and again, getting other people involved, which again I think helps too if you're playing a prank, especially if you're again all in good fun.
Yeah, don't be a lone wolf.
Yeah, like get other people involved. As long as it's in good fun, no one's gonna get hurt. Everyone will have a laugh afterwards. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that definitely helps to again make the prank more legitimate.
Absolutely.
And again, that much more intricate.
Yes. And did I tell you the conclusion of the ping pong balls?
Okay, so let's just go ahead and refresh my memory, because I vaguely remember the ping pong balls.
So what I did was I just took a single ping pong ball, I put it in a package, cardboard box, and we put like the address.
Oh, okay, yeah.
On it and everything, but we would send one every month from a different part of the world.
Okay,
with just a single ping pong ball.
Now I remember this. This is coming back to me now.
And he was terrified. And of course, that was all that was in it. It was just the ping pong ball and everything. And it just like the goal was to try and get it through a whole year. And then I was gonna send him like at the end of the year. The plan was to send him a different colored one and then just stop. And he would get so worked up every time he would get one because he thought there was going to be something else in it. And he told me later, after he found out, so I was not able to accomplish like the long haul for that.
How many months did you get in before? Because if you're doing one a month, a ping pong ball a month,
I almost made it to a year. I think I had like maybe 2 or 3 months left. It was devastating to me. It ruined.
I like the fact that you say it's devastating to you, not taking into consideration Evan at all.
I was so close. Well, afterwards he told me that the reason he was so upset about it is because he was so terrified that he had actually, speaking of being neurotic, he thought he might have accidentally signed up for something online with my parents' credit, like a debit card. And I was like, what are you doing online that makes you think that you would have just like automatically been signed up for something?
How old were you all at this time?
Well, he was, I know he was in high school. I think this was...
I was thinking he'd be younger.
That was what was really funny too, because we were both older when I did these elaborate things.
See, I was under the impression that you did this in like elementary school or middle school or something.
No, I wasn't a prodigy. Unfortunately, I did pull pranks on my older brothers when I was like younger in middle school, but not on Evan. I waited till Evan got older. So, the trauma wasn't that bad. But I was like, what are you doing online that just makes you think that you could have, like, accidentally gotten something with their information? And he's like, I don't know. He had no, like, good logical reasoning for it. He just was terrified that the stars would have aligned and somehow... Yeah, and I was like, well, what were you afraid you were going to get? He was like, I don't know. He was like, something that I would never order that was like scandalous or something like that. And he was just like so mortified.
That might top my neurosis.
It was impressive. And I think that was almost funnier than the prank itself. To me.
Yeah, I can see that.
I used to, when I was in middle school, my brothers had their own bathroom. And I found out on the sink, you could switch the tabs, from like the hot and cold. So I would just go in there randomly and just switch them back and forth, which, my oldest brother is dyslexic, as I am. And so I didn't realize, like, I didn't know who this was going to get. I just wanted him to get one of them. I was hoping it would be both of them. But one day we were just chatting with the family, like, over dinner and stuff. And I think something came up about the sink being fixed. And my oldest brother, Ben, he just flies into a rage. And he's like, I don't know who's doing it. He's like, but stop it. And my mom's like, what are you talking about? He's like, somebody keeps coming in and they switch the tabs back and forth. He's like, it takes him like like 3 minutes to finally figure out which is which and then fix them. Oh, it was so funny. Well, I couldn't help it. I started laughing because he was so mad, and that was just absolutely hilarious. And so when I started laughing, everybody just looks at me, and my mom's like, I think we know who did it. I stuffed paper in his shoes over a period of time, like at the very edge. So, but I did it like gradually.
Okay.
So it wasn't just all at once. So the more he wore them, the more uncomfortable they would be. So that was pretty funny. And I stuffed like playing cards in my brother's pillow, Stuart. But what I did is I worked on building like a very thin layer on both sides, so it would like cover.
Yeah.
And then I just kept like making it thicker. And one day my brother was really frustrated because he couldn't figure out why his pillow was stiff and it was like lumpy and weird and everything. So he goes to change it and then these cards just go flying everywhere. And he told that over Christmas dinner, I think, one year. And he was like, what the heck? He's like, that doesn't even make sense. He's like, why would you just go stuff cards in somebody's pillow? And I was like, because you were surprised? It was really funny.
It's like, you're asking the wrong question here,
Yeah,
kid.
exactly.
Why wouldn't I is the question you should really be asking yourself.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, it was funny. Just stupid things like that. And then I got older, and of course it broadened, and I really refined the skill.
Clearly.
And then we had the pennies and the ping pong balls with them, you know. Really mastered the craft.
Yeah. How long did the penny one last? 'Cause that lasted for a while too, didn't it?
Yes. So that actually lasted for...
It was like over a year, wasn't it?
It was. That one went on quite some time. I think it was like almost 2 years. And that was a delight. That was so much fun. And that was one that I got both of my parents in on because we just started putting pennies everywhere, but specifically places that only he would find them. And it was really fun too because at first he was like determined that I was the one doing it, which I knew he would, which is why I got other people involved.
Smart.
Because then he started, paying more attention to the things I was doing. So when he would, I would switch it off with my dad, and he would start putting them places so that it looks like I'm totally innocent and he can't catch me. And then he started being suspicious of, like, well, could it be that my dad is in on it? So when he started suspecting him, then we got my mom in on it. And he would, like, never suspect her. Like, she was the wild card that we just, like, kept in the back.
That does seem a little out of character for your mom, but that's what makes it perfect.
Exactly. Honestly, she didn't want to do it at first, but after she saw how much fun we were having, we convinced her to help out a little bit. So, yeah, but that one was good. I'll never forget, one time I was up in my room, and I was just doing my thing, and I just hear all the way down the stairs, Evan just screams, like at the top of his lungs, pennies! We put him in his bookcase and his phone. I put one in his shoe one time, so when we went running, he was really uncomfortable. So we step off to the side so he can, like, fix it, because he thought he got, like, a rock in it or something. So he goes to dump it out, and his penny falls out. And he's like, what? He told our friends, family, anytime we were, like, in a social situation and we hit, like, a lull in the conversation, I'd be like, Evan, you should tell them about what's been happening to you with the pennies. Like, that's so weird. Tell them about it. And he would get so excited and animated. He's like, you're never going to believe this.
I'm being haunted by pennies.
It was so funny. It was very difficult for me not to just, like...
break character.
Yes. Of course, part of it was playing into the fact, like, because I knew I was going to laugh. I'm like, I can't keep a straight face.
Yeah.
So let's create a situation where I can really lean into that and it's not going to be suspicious. So I would laugh, and he'd be like, see, you're guilty because you're laughing. I'm like, well, Dad is too. Like, this is funny. I was like, and why would, like, am I really going to take the time, Evan, to plan out this whole thing and think about where to strategically place these pennies where you only will find them. As well as, like, why would I just want to waste a bunch of pennies to do this? Like, it makes no sense. I'm like, I bet, you know, you're accusing me of this, but I think you want attention.
Gaslighting him.
Yes. It worked for a little while. He finally figured it out, and now we laugh about it. It's fine.
So I guess, like, I don't think I asked this last time you told me this. Where did you get all the pennies? Did you just have, like, a stockpile of pennies, or did you just pick them up wherever you saw pennies and then just exchange them to Evan?
Yes. As well as, like, when my dad got in on it, because it was just, like, pennies, he would, a lot of times we would, like, reuse the old ones.
Okay.
Because I knew where Evan was, like, putting them. So, I would just go find them and, like, take a few so he wouldn't notice, and then just, like, reuse those, recycle. So it was really just the same pennies he was finding, like, over and over and over again. But yeah, any pennies I found, I would save for later for that reason, specifically.
So I kind of envisioned, like, when your parents got involved, they would go to the bank and be like, here's a 5, give me a row of pennies, don't ask questions. And they're like, okay, here's a row of pennies.
I think my dad might have actually done that once. Because he got very invested. We have so much fun. Like, when it comes to pranks, if I come up with something, he's always on board with it. He's like, what are we doing?
Nice. That, again, also tracks for Mark.
Yes.
That makes so much sense.
We tag team all the time, especially with stuff like that. It's such a delight. Going back to, once again, the fun you have as an adult.
Yeah. Come up with elaborate pranks, get other people involved, and just have fun.
It's a great team building exercise. You create so many friends and, like, connections that you didn't have before. And it's just a great, you know, activity. It's great problem solving as well. There are just so many facets to it that make it such a great hobby to have.
I'd love to see that as, like, one, as a job resume, or two, if you became, like, a manager of some kind of, like, company or something like that, and that was, like, how you initiate new employees. It's like, all right.
Can you pull a prank?
Can you pull a prank? And depending on how elaborate it is, like, supervisor, management.
I actually used being able to, like, pull pranks and stuff as part of an interview. Like, they asked me what my strengths were, and I actually went back to some of that, and I, like, tried to use it to promote, like, you know, charismatic, great problem solver, great with people, obviously. It didn't work. I did not get the job. But I thought it was worth a try. And, you know, they'll have a fun story to tell now. Like, you will never believe. There was the chick I interviewed earlier. And she said her skill set was...
Maybe that's why they didn't hire you, because they're like, they don't like to be pranked. They're like, no, not again.
It was actually past trauma. I gave them PTSD flashbacks. Okay, next question. So, okay, people talk about turn-offs, but specifically in romantic settings. Okay, fine, but that's so overdone. So I want to ask, what is a platonic turn-off? Like, when you're talking to someone and it's like, we could be really good friends. Like, I could see this going somewhere. Like, just being... like the dynamic duo in a fantasy film or something, and then they do or say something that's like, no, that's gone, I'm sorry, like, I just can't.
So, and again, this could be just be me being the introvert that I am, but honestly, like, sometimes when people try too hard, and again,
they're just like, too eager to be your friend.
Yeah, and I feel a little bad because it comes from a place of like, it comes from a good place. Like, obviously, they I assume, genuinely do want to become friends with, like, you know, all the people they're trying to befriend. But, yeah, at the same time, it's like, slow down. You were trying way too hard.
So, wait a second. That means that desperation is both a turnoff in the romantic realm as well as the platonic realm.
Yeah. Yeah, because, I don't know. Like, just... And also, I guess, like, part of it, too, is I feel like and this may not be the case for everybody, but a lot of times it feels like when the people who are that, like, peppy and eager come off as a little fake. And again, maybe it's not, they aren't, and that's just how I'm perceiving it.
No, I get it, because it's like they're not showing you their most authentic self because they're trying so hard to get on your good side. So they're, like, presenting an image that's not really them.
Yeah.
It's something that they know will appeal to you. So it's a little fake.
Yeah, so that's one thing that kind of like, I guess is like a bit of a turnoff. Like, again, if someone approaches me and they're just overly friendly, and it's like, hey, we should be like best friends, like, slow down, please. I gotta process what just happened here. Give me a moment. Don't befriend that person, and I'll come back to you.
You're moving too fast.
Yeah.
We just met.
Like, it's not you, it's me. It genuinely is me.
Oh
Just go away for a little while, I'll consider it.
Yeah, this was even, like, better than I was hoping it would be. I knew I was going to get an interesting answer, but this just far surpassed my expectations.
And then another thing, too, is... like when people like are very opinionated but are unyielding in their opinions, because it's one thing to like have strong opinions, that's totally fine. I think most of us do in some form or fashion, but I would like to think that like even if you have strong opinions on whatever it may be, whether it be politics, your favorite movie or something like that, that's the hill you'll die on. You can still have a conversation where someone's like, well, like for me, if someone was like, I'm just not really big into Lord of the Rings, I'd be curious because I'm like, how? But I'm not going to be like offended, like, well, you're wrong because it's a cinematic masterpiece. Right. I can still, I'm willing to hear other people's perspective and to kind of better understand, okay, I can see why you think that way. But it's annoying, and again, a turnoff when, someone's just so unyielding in their opinions to where there is no, like, it is definitive, these are my thoughts, you cannot change my mind, you cannot...
Yeah, they're just, like, really dogmatic about it.
Yeah, and then it's like, I don't really want to talk to you, because if you're that strong-willed about that particular topic, is that how you are with everything?
Well, and it's like, with any relationship, platonic or otherwise, part of it is like you have to be willing to disagree on things.
Yeah.
Or compromise.
Yeah, exactly. Like, compromise, I think, is probably the best thing, the best word for it, is because, obviously... we're not even successful relationships. You gotta like bend on some things. Again, that's how you make a relationship work in any capacity, whether it be friendship, relationship, romantic, or anything. You have to like compromise in some form or fashion.
You're both individuals, so it's like you're going to come across something at some point where you're going to have very different ideas and opinions on said subject, and you're probably both going to be equally as passionate about it. And so it's like you've got to be willing to say, okay, we both feel this way, we'll just agree to disagree and move on. I can see where that would be, all of those things would be platonic turnoffs. I don't know what I would say specifically. I don't know, the eagerness doesn't necessarily weird me out so much. It's just like, wow, you're like very energetic.
You're very extra today.
Yes. I think, I know. Okay, it would be needy.
Yeah, I can get that.
Because it's like, going back to the whole vampire thing, people just like sucking the life out of you. It's life is difficult, and you're gonna have ups and downs, and there are gonna be times where it's like, okay, you need to give a little more in this situation, be there, help them through whatever it is that they're going through. But when you have that one person that's just like always going through a crisis, like all the time, and like I understand sometimes it like things just stack up that way.
Yeah.
But I think it's the attitude. You have people that are trying to get through it and trying to work through it versus people that it's like they use it as an excuse to just like get more attention.
Yeah, kind of like a pity party where it's kind of
Yes.
like, woe is me.
Yes, exactly. It's like they just whine and whine, and it's like it never ends.
Yeah.
You know, that is exhausting.
It is, because, and again, like, that's one of those things where I do genuinely feel bad, because I want to be empathetic in sympathetic form, but at the same time, it's kind of like, okay, you're driving patience here. There's only so much I can feel sorry for you for before I'm just like, please stop telling me about all the things that's wrong with your life. Just five at a time, so I can process that.
5 for the week is all you get.
Yeah, 5 for the week. It's like, any more than that, I'm charging you extra.
Yeah. Like, you're hitting your limit. Yeah, it's just, that's a bit much. I think one thing that really just turns me off with people just in general, even in conversations that aren't going anywhere, is just to pass the time, pushy people.
Yes.
I don't do well with that, and it just ticks me off. And especially people that are into peer pressure. Oh my gosh, talking about things that just like irrationally make you frustrated and upset. Like, you trying to embarrass me, shame me, or like just push me into something I don't want to do, just make me not want to do it more. Like, I don't feel compelled to give in any form or fashion. And it's like, if I see that tactic being used, I just like, I get this fire just like deep inside of my soul.
Kind of makes you like want to not do it out of spite at that point, where it's like, it could have been something you just genuinely didn't have any interest in, but now it's like, I just don't want to do this now just to spite you, because I don't like how pushy you're being.
Well, and then for me, it like goes a step further, because it's like, not only do I not want to do the thing now, I don't want to be around you. Like, I can't look at you without just breaking down into a rage. Like, and then that's the end of that, you know?
No, yeah, I think that makes sense.
I don't do well with pushy people.
Yeah, no. Quit being pushy, people.
Yeah, ask nicely. If they say no, no means no.
Yeah.
Let it go. Anyway, that would be mine. Also, another one, and then we can move on. Going back to the whole people just not being able to talk about anything else besides politics.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I can't be friends. I'm not that invested.
And again, I don't mind to have like a political conversation with someone, but it has to be like at the right. I guess I have to kind of be in the right kind of mood or headspace for it.
Right people, right timing.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't want to like constantly be like texting or calling up my friends, or anytime we do get together for a social event. It's like, so you hear about so and so governor doing something stupid? It's kind of like, oh god, not this again.
Yes.
Because also politicians are all dumb and I don't like them. So is it really a surprise that any of them have done something dumb or controversial or scandalous?
Oh, exactly. And it's like, again, it just never ends, you know, if you get on that train.
Yeah.
Okay. What are some very serious culinary opinions you had as a kid that have drastically changed?
I wouldn't say I really had a whole lot of drastic changes, because I've always been, like, I've never really been a particularly picky eater. So I'd say it's less, I think it's more just as, you know, as we age, our taste buds change. So it's more of, there are maybe foods that I was less inclined to eat for whatever reason. Like, I remember I wasn't super big on, like, Brussels sprouts when I was a kid. I don't remember if it was because I just genuinely didn't like the taste or whatever it was, but for whatever reason, didn't like Brussels sprouts. Now, love Brussels sprouts. A lot of times, if that's, like, one of the options for my side dish, I'll go with Brussels sprouts instead of fries or...
Heck yeah! Well, what's not to love about mini cabbages?
Yeah. Especially, so, like, one of my favorite Brussels sprout places that have Brussels sprout sides is Goodwood, because it's kind of, like, got this kind of garlic sauce and, like, little sprinkles of bacon.
Oh, okay.
Delicious.
Nice.
It kind of makes it, you know, what should be a healthy thing very unhealthy, but it tastes so good. But yeah, so Brussels sprouts is something that, like, and again, it was so long ago, I don't remember. Again, if I did genuinely dislike the taste, or for whatever reason was like, no, I don't like that veggie because just a child and child opinions. And And I've kind of come around to like some foods because I've never really been that big on fish or seafood. I'm more inclined to eat fish and seafood if it's seafood if I'm near a coast because it was freshly caught, or there's a better chance it was freshly caught.
Oh, and you can taste a distinct
yes.
difference. It really is just like night and day.
Yeah, so I try to be adventurous and try new things just in general, but especially like if I'm in a particular place where they specialize in a certain dish that I can't get here, or maybe not as readily available here, I'll try it just because, again, I'm like, well, it's not something I can readily get available in town, so I'll try that. And again, I like to be an adventurous person, whether it be, exploring new sites or exploring new foods. And so, yeah, I guess that was a very boring answer because...
No, you're fine.
Yeah, I never had any drastic shifts in my palate, I guess.
I think a few for me would be just sugar in general. When you're a kid, anything with sugar is just like the holy grail. And then you get older and it's like, maybe not. Although, I say that, but there are so many people, it's like they still have the palate of a child. And it's like anything with sugar in it, they're going to go for it.
So I'm, as you know, sweets are like my one weakness.
Yes.
However, I'm selective with my sweets. So I prefer, chocolate, like candy bars or cookies, especially freshly baked cookies. That is like, someone makes me a plate of freshly baked cookies, I will look the other way in whatever crimes you've committed. I can be easily bought. But brownies I like, not as big on cake, and then like Suckers and Jolly Ranchers, that kind of sweets, they're fine. But even as a kid, I enjoyed them well enough, but give me a candy bar or, again, especially Reese's is one of my favorite American chocolates. Or if you really want to bribe me, European chocolates. I don't know what it is that makes European chocolate so much better than American, but it is on a whole other level.
I actually have an answer for you.
Ooh, educate me.
So, we actually, America uses a specific ingredient to make it more addicting.
Oh, of course we do.
But it changes, of course, the flavor.
Yeah.
And I think it's like the way we, like the milk we use as well, or like the way that we put it in or something like that. I know it's those two things. But it is incredibly different from anything outside of America because they don't use that same ingredient.
That makes sense. We got it.
It's awful. And it's so funny, too, because, we were reading about it. My dad actually found this out because we went to a world market and we were seeing, all these different chocolates and stuff. And so he was actually really curious about it. He was like, I wonder what is, the difference. Because we hadn't thought it would taste all that different. It is, drastically. And it's so funny when you have a piece of American chocolate versus something from Europe. It's like American chocolate is disgusting.
It is.
It tastes so bad. And another thing is, too, I think we actually do use a ton of milk in ours, whereas, they don't use as much, if they do. And, once again, that whole dairy thing, it really kills the flavor.
Yeah. But, yeah, so that's... I forget how we got on that topic. But, no. I remember. So, yeah, sweets are my one weakness, but, again, I'm kind of selective. And as an adult, I try to, supplement my sweet tooth for sort of healthier stuff. So I try to eat this brand of peanut butter and dark chocolate granola because I'm like, granola's relatively healthy. Obviously I'm not going to eat or I try not to eat a whole lot because obviously anything if you eat too much is not going to be healthy for you.
Moderation.
Or I really like yogurt covered raisins. Still not really healthy, but probably slightly healthier than chocolate-covered raisins, which I also like. But, yeah, I still probably do have the palate of a small child when it comes to sweets, but I'm an adult and I'm smart enough to know, I would like to eat, that whole entire candy bar, but that's 500 calories. That's insane that a candy bar has 500 calories.
It is, and they just keep adding more and more sugar. It's just a travesty what they're doing to cereals nowadays.
Oh yeah, cereal is basically candy now, unless you're eating Cheerios, and Kellogg's flakes, not the frosted ones, but just the regular flakes.
Well, even back in the day, like, the Frosted Flakes were really good, but it was just, like, a little bit of sugar. Which, like, now they're adding Frosted Flakes with, like, marshmallows and all kinds of other stuff. It's like, it was fine on its own.
Yeah.
Like...
and it, like, again, sounding like an old person again. So breakfast is, like, it really is, like, one of the most important meals of the day. So try to, like, eat a little...
I can see you're using hand gestures, you're, like, manifesting now.
Yeah.
This is very serious.
You all can't see it, but I'm casting a spell right now. I'm trying to conceptualize, manifest that, yes,
The
Cinnamon
severity
Toast
of
Crunch
breakfast
cereal
foods.
tastes good, but it is basically candy. Do not feed your children those types of cereals, especially when parents are always complaining about their kids having so much energy. It's like, because you're jacking them up with sugar.
Oh gosh, yeah, it's awful. It's so bad.
Glad I don't have kids.
Now you do sound like an old man. Relatable, but still. Well, as far as like the food goes, I'm really picky about sugar as well, but I'm hypoglycemic, so it's like I try to stay away from sweets in general, like anyway. But I have never liked cake. It's awful. Like, icing is one of the things I despise most in this world. It's not good. It just tastes like sugar. Like you're just eating sugar cubes.
Yes.
And it's not good. And it's funny because I remember growing up and anytime there was like a party or an event, there was always cake. And so it's like I was always given cake even though it's like I didn't like it, but it's like you had to eat it.
Yeah.
And then I got older and I realized, I was like, wait a second. I was like, I don't have to eat this. And I've like sworn off cake ever since. I don't like it. It's so overrated.
And another thing too is it's so rich to where because really no one in my family are big on cake. Like if we do get a cake for someone's birthday or some kind of celebration, we'll maybe eat half of it, and then the rest just sits there and gets stale because it's just so rich. Because again, all that sugar, and it's like I don't want to waste it, but at the same time, it is so ungodly unhealthy, and I've already eaten like my calorie count for the day. That's more me, less so probably other family members. But yeah, I'm just like, nah, I can't eat a slice of cake. That's probably 800 calories or more in just that one slice.
Well, and as time goes on, they just keep adding more icing. Like I remember, I despised cupcakes. And, like, everybody just raves about cupcakes. Why? There's so much icing.
Yeah, it almost makes them awkward to eat because
it does.
You can't not eat a cupcake with the amount of, like, the layers of, like, icing they put on them. You can't not get it all over your face, and then you look like a kid again eating your first, birthday cake where your parents are like, oh, look how messy they got their first birthday cake. It's like, I'm in my 30s. I shouldn't have to look like a child.
I remember when I was a kid, I would actually, like, if I had to have a cupcake to be nice, I would scrape the icing off. And people thought I was so weird because I would just eat, like, the cake part. Yeah. Which was still, like, a little bit much. But it's, like, that was better. Yeah. And, like, all of the other kids, they would eat the icing, but we'd leave the cake.
I was guilty of that when I was a kid, because as a kid, it's like sugar. But yeah, now as an adult, and all that sugar it also doesn't. It makes I don't know. It just doesn't. I do not feel good ingesting that much sugar.
No, yeah.
It's like my stomach is punching me from the inside. It's like, idiot! Why are you eating so much sugar? I can't digest all this.
Afterwards, you're like, do I have a hernia?
Yeah.
This is awful.
Am I dying?
Sugar is a huge. It was quite the change.
Is there still a type of food or sweet or something like that you still either are tempted to, or that's like the thing you'll treat yourself every now and then that you're willing to endure, like maybe the terrible feeling of eating like a sugar-filled donut or something like that?
I do still really enjoy ice cream. That hasn't changed. But who doesn't love ice cream? Like, it's really good. Yeah. I also really like gummy bears.
Okay.
I I know like part of it is probably a texture thing. It's chewy, it's fun, and they're colorful.
Okay.
Honestly, that's what I see mostly. I mean, not even the flavor. I'm just like, ooh, colors.
So they really do all taste the same? I don't know if gummy bears are supposed to be different flavors depending on the color.
Well, and it really depends on what brand you get too, because there are some where it's like you really can't tell the difference, and those are awful. They just taste like plastic. And then there are others that are like more natural, so they use actual fruit flavors, and those are the best.
Which I don't know why that. Again, the way my brain works. So what are your thoughts on watermelon flavored stuff? Because my thing is, that's not watermelon. Watermelon is one of the most bland fruits, because it really doesn't have a lot of flavor on its own. And I don't get the mass appeal for watermelon. It's fine. But watermelon flavored stuff, even though I like, that is totally artificial. I have never had a watermelon that tastes like that.
So I actually really enjoy watermelon, and it really just depends on like how ripe you get it, because there are some that I've had that are just like, they're very sweet but really, really good, and then I have had like a few here and there that are like very generically bought, like they come pre-sliced and everything, and those are like super watery, they're not good. With that said, I really enjoy watermelon. I get it. As far as the flavored stuff, I would agree, it doesn't taste like watermelon. I don't always hate it though. It really just depends on what it's in, because there are some candy like flavors or like even drinks. Okay, like they'll have like watermelon flavors, and I've had some where it's like really good because it's very subtle. So it's like, it almost tastes like very refreshing.
Yeah.
And then I've had others that it's just like, this tastes like bubble gum. This is awful.
Yes, that's kind of more that artificial flavor where it's almost like no one's actually had a watermelon before, and it's like, just make a flavor up. We'll call it watermelon.
It's pink.
Yeah, it's pink. We'll call it watermelon.
Make it taste pink.
Yeah. Also, I don't get why people put salt on watermelon. I think that's weird, and to me, it doesn't really make it taste better. Cause I vividly remember as a kid, we were out. I don't know if we were celebrating anything or if we just had a watermelon. But I remember, my family were like cutting it up, and everyone was super excited because we were having watermelon. And I remember as a kid, I was biting into it. I'm like, why do we put salt on here? Why isn't it sugar? Because as a kid, I'm thinking,
fruit more sugar.
Well, but also like fruit usually are more sweeter.
Yeah.
And so in my head, as a small child, I'm thinking, why are we making something that should be sweeter taste salty and savory? And like my family just gave me this weirdest look of I was speaking nonsense. They're like, sugar on watermelon? Whoa, it's salt. You either put salt on there or you eat it as is, kid. And I just thought, as a small child, I thought that was the weirdest thing. Their reaction to what I thought was a very genuine question.
Well, yeah, it was very reasonable. So I know it actually has something to do with, like, hang on.
Oh, are you looking that up?
Yes,
Oh.
because I read about this like a long time ago. I thought it had something to do with like the reaction that it creates.
Okay.
I realize that probably doesn't make a lot of sense, but like there are some like flavors that when put together, or like some like putting salt on certain things actually brings out a different like note or something along those lines.
That would make sense then. So again, a lot of not just foods, but a lot of alcohols are like that too, where depending on how you pour it or depending on what container it's in, it's going to have those different notes and flavors. Even though, I don't know, maybe I'm just a basic person, I'm not good, don't have a sophisticated palate when I drink wine or other alcohols. I'm just like, tastes like wine to me. I don't taste...
I'm not getting this cherry note, the coffee bean.
I feel like, I don't know, I just feel like a lot of wine, a lot of times I've seen wine tasters just kind of sound pretentious, like, I can smell the soil is slightly acidic. It's like, shut up, just drink your wine. Either you like it or you don't. Tell me if the wine is good and I will try it.
So, and I used to feel the same way because I was like, it all just tastes like very bitter or like super sweet. But after I've like really like tried a lot of different ones and like really gotten into.
Yeah.
And I'm not a wine snob by any means. But it's like after you had it a while and you do kind of like peruse like different ones, I think you can start to pick up on like the differences.
Yeah. And again, because I don't drink wine very often. I'm more of a beer person. And beer, I can definitely pick up on certain flavors more. But then there are other, like even beers that I really enjoy. Like Hefeweizen is one of my favorite kind of beers. It's usually made with like cloves. I don't know what clove tastes like by itself. So I'm sure I'd taste it, but could I drink a Hefeweizen and be like, yes, the cloves. And the cloves are made in the Austrian Alps. Yeah, no. It tastes good, and I enjoy it. That's all I'm going to say, for the most part.
Well, as far as the watermelon thing, this is saying that it basically enhances the sweetness.
Okay.
Which makes sense, because then you've got like that sweet and salty thing going on, so that makes sense.
I'm also not a huge fan of sweet and savory foods. But some foods, they find that nice balance. But a lot of times, I want just one or the other. Just make up your mind. Just be yourself. Either be sweet or be savory.
I actually like some sweet and savory things. I don't like sweet and savory things when it comes to pairing them with noodles.
Because I think Asian dishes usually do a better job of pairing like the sweet and savory.
I would agree.
Like I really like orange chicken. Because it has that hint of that citrus flavor, but it's not overwhelming to I feel like I'm just eating protein
and sugar.
Yeah, protein and sugar.
No, I agree. I think there are some. It's like when it's a subtle like duality that you have going on. I think it's really good. But some people don't do it very well. I think. Oh, one of the things that I have really had like changed opinions like over the years. Macaroni and cheese.
Interesting.
So.
Fan or not?
It depends.
Okay.
So when we're talking about like homemade baked macaroni and cheese, that's divine. If we're talking about stuff that comes out of the box, like Kraft, like I remember I used to love that stuff as a kid. I got older, I'm like, this is not good. It's bad. It just tastes like powder.
Yeah.
It's, ugh.
So macaroni and cheese is one of my all-time favorite side dishes.
Yes.
Has been ever since I was a kid. That's one of the highlights of Thanksgiving for me, is my mom always makes just a huge bowl of macaroni and cheese and her broccoli casserole. Like the turkey and everything else is fine. Yeah. But honestly, like if we did away with the turkey, I would not be upset. I'd be totally okay.
It wouldn't ruin the meal.
Yeah, it would not ruin the meal. But that is one of the things that I always look forward to, especially because it was mostly my grandmother on my mom's side, and my mom, their macaroni and cheese I hold to a super high standard. Which, granted, I think part of it is just nostalgia, and having grown up with it my entire life.
Right, but it's good nostalgia.
It is good nostalgia. And also, in general, I am a little picky with my macaroni and cheese because I've had macaroni and cheese at different places.
Yeah.
And I feel like I've never had a just outright bad macaroni and cheese, but I feel like a lot of places it's either too dry, in which case it's not that appealing because it's just dry and doesn't taste that great, or it's too watery.
Yeah, so it's like soupy.
Yeah, almost soupy.
It's like, who wants to eat noodle cheese soup? That's just ugh.
So there's not a lot of restaurants that I've eaten at that has that great balance of and it also depends too. I've had some really good like white cheddar macaroni. I think I've had some Gouda macaroni. So usually anytime that I go to a restaurant and I see like that as a side dish, or actually when we were in Maine back in 2022, I had a big macaroni dish with lobster. Because it's the first time I'd ever had lobster. So I was like,
what did you think?
I really liked it.
I know, it's amazing.
Because again, not big on seafood, but I'm like, I'm in Maine. Maine is famous for lobster. So gotta have my lobster. So I had different kinds of lobster dishes, but that was the first thing I ordered like day one when we went to a restaurant, as I saw that was one of the options of like, give me a whole plate of this.
Yeah, and I mean I have had it's usually very specific restaurants that have like really good like pretty decent macaroni and cheese.
Yeah.
If it's just like fast food places, no, it's terrible. And for the most part, I would lean more towards like, again, if it's homemade, fresh ingredients, like all that stuff, I'm down. If it's store-bought or like a fast food chain, no. 2 thumbs down. It's bad.
Yeah, or it's not something that I would go out of my way to get. Like if someone, if that's on the menu, if I'm at friend or family's and they have that, I'll eat it. But yeah, it's not something that I'm gonna get excited about like I do for Thanksgiving macaroni. Where I'm like, yes, I'm gonna eat like half of that bowl of macaroni.
Okay.
It's been a very insightful episode, I'm sure, for the viewers. Learning all about our tastes in food.
Preferences.
and social settings.
Oh, yeah, I never answered that question about, like, finding it, like, what I find particularly, like, difficult when approaching people to try and, like, interact with them. So, I find it difficult to, like, really connect with people when it comes to, like, hobbies and things. Like, that's where I really have a hard time, like, maneuvering, because I am interested in, like, what do you get into when you're not at work? But so many people that I come across, all they do is work.
I know, and it's kind of depressing. And not, like, judging them, but...
Right. Well, and I was thinking about it, too. Like, you have people, and they are rare, and that in and of itself is kind of fun. You have people that, like, genuinely just enjoy what they do.
You lucky few. Exactly. I'm so envious.
And so they are just, like, all about their job, and that's, like, they really look forward to going in the morning. And so, like, that's really cool, because that's their passion. Can't really relate, but that's still really awesome. Yeah. But then you have the other kind of people, and these are the ones that I'm talking about specifically because they are vast. They're everywhere. And it's like all they do is work, but they don't really have a passion for it. It's just that they don't know what else to do with their time.
Yes.
And so they're just there all the time, even though they don't really enjoy it. They do it.
Yeah.
And they don't really want to spend the energy to go and do anything else. And that is a really difficult situation to, like, navigate when trying to interact or connect with a person.
Yeah, because it's like you want to bring up something. It's like, oh, do you like outdoors? It's like, I don't know. I don't really get outdoors very much because I'm working. It's like, okay, do you like what TV do you? What's the show you love? I don't really watch much TV either. It's like, oh, you're making this really hard on me right now. Do you oxygen? Surely you breathe oxygen, right?
Or when it's like you finally hit on something and you're like, well, actually, I do have this one thing that I like to do. And it's like, oh, awesome. And you think, yes, this is it. We can finally, like, connect on something. And then they're like, well, I really like to go, like, clubbing.
It's like, nope.
Yep. It's like, I tried. Well, that was a fail. Because it's like, I don't. Yeah. I can't.
That, to me, sounds one of the absolute worst social situations. Being stuck in a loud club with loud music, big crowds of people. Yeah. If that did happen, I'm the weird guy sitting in the corner, probably just sipping my beer and hoping I can leave. But I would probably only be drugged to that situation if I'm not driving and someone's like, oh yeah, we're just gonna go hang out. Okay, cool. And no one tells me that that's the destination. That's probably the only way you're gonna get me into a club.
I would definitely have to be tricked into it because, I mean, it just, honestly... I understand why people go, which I'll get to that in a second, but it just doesn't sound appealing to me. It sounds so boring because it's like I'm thinking of like a million other things that I could be doing that I would just have so much more fun doing. Yeah,
and I can't dance either. Like I have zero rhythm.
Well, it's so awkward. Yeah, because it's like I get the partnered old-fashioned dancing or like even line dancing, like river dancing, like all that stuff where it's like there's a rhyme and reason, quite literally. It's like there's something to follow and to memorize, and so it's fun. It's like you can kind of get into it versus like what most people do nowadays, which is just like move around. Yeah, and there's not
I know
really
people argue it's like, oh well, it's not about knowing how to dance, it's just about having fun. It's like, look, I'm doing this for the sake of everyone. Yes, I'm not worried about embarrassing myself. Right. I'm worried about embarrassing everyone else, so they're like, what is that guy doing? Please leave.
Oh, gosh.
It's like, his rhythm is so terrible. It's an abomination.
Well, it's like, I am not a freestyle dancer. That is not something that I have gotten into. So it's like, I don't know what to do. I'm just standing there, and it's like, okay, just like, what do you just jump around? Like, I don't know. And I have seen people that like freestyle dance, and it's like some of it is like really impressive. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh wow, that's neat that you can do that just on the fly. I could never. I don't know how. Even like,
because I remember in middle school I went to the one school dance that I went to. Because a lot of my friends were going like, oh, I should totally come. So I was like, what? 3 different occasions. Like, girls tried to teach me how to dance, which I appreciated. Because again, I was very much just standing in the corner, like, I have made a mistake coming here.
You were a wallflower?
Yes. But the first girl who came up to me, like, I kind of knew her. I don't think we had any classes together, but kind of knew her. Mm-hmm. She's like, oh, do you want to dance? Like, I don't know how. She's like, oh, I'll show you. It's like, okay, but like, I don't think this is gonna go well. But I was like, maybe I just need the right teacher. Yeah. So she. And trying to do like the basic stuff of like, left foot, right foot, didn't go well. And then finally she was kind of like, this is fun. And left, and I was like, smart. So then I forget how much longer it was after that. Second girl comes up to me. She's like, hey, do you want to dance? I was like, and I didn't want to just say no. I was like, I'm not very good, like, at all. Yeah. It's like, oh, it's fine, I'll teach you. It's like, someone else tried to teach me. And she was like, she was like, that's fine, I'll be better. I'm like, okay.
That's so funny, endearing, and awkward at the same time.
So like by the third time, like the girl was like, hey, do you want to dance? Like, look.
I've been through this twice now.
I appreciate it, but it's best you just move on. There is no hope for me. But she was just like, gotcha, okay.
Oh man. So we start from like freshman year where you're like wide-eyed and hopeful, and then at the end, third time, you're like, you're from a Western.
Yeah, I'm like, it's like, look, I've seen some stuff, man. Please, just leave me be.
The only thing I'm gonna do is get a shot of whiskey.
Yeah. So yeah, that was the one and only time I went to a school dance, and again was like, I learned my lesson.
That is quite the saga. I was very invested from beginning to end. That was really good. You should totally turn that into. You could like turn that into a short story if you wanted to.
Yeah. So if anybody wants to animate that, go ahead. Because it will take no effort at all to just do the, like, I wouldn't even say I have the rhythm of, like, the wacky inflatable tube people. Because they're following the rhythm of, like, the wind. There's a little bit of
mystical stuff going on.
No. I don't even have that kind of grace when the few times I've tried to dance.
Well, you know, I have trouble just walking in general. I'm disaster prone. I fall a lot. Although, in the past, like, year or so, it's died down quite a bit, and so, like, that's interesting. But it also makes me really nervous, because I'm worried we're going to hit, like, up again.
Yeah, you've had some pretty close calls.
Mm-hmm. So, it's, like, that's just a challenge for me in general, so dancing is...
Sounds like you're really rolling the dice with very low odds.
You don't know how much you're asking of me. I mean... Yeah, it's not my thing. It's not my gift. So yeah, and you move on. Yeah. Play into your strengths.
And I would say I'm not the most coordinated person either, which obviously doesn't help either with dancing, because obviously you have to be very coordinated. And embarrassingly, it's like, again, when I'm out hiking, I can be as sure-footed as like a mountain goat. There have been times where I'm walking on a completely flat surface and stumble over my own feet. I don't know how, because there was no rocks or anything to trip over. I'm just walking through a store, and I trip. And I hope that no one saw me basically trip over myself. Because then they're like, is that guy drunk or on drugs? It's like, no, it's just,
No, this is me normally.
Yeah, this is me trying to function.
I don't need them. Well, going back to the whole, like, clubbing thing, I think the difference is, like, some people want to immerse themselves in an activity. Other people want a distraction. And I think, like, going to clubs and things like that, where it's like things are loud, you're not really there to talk and connect. You're there to get distracted,
right.
you know? And so I am not one of those people that is, like, looking for a distraction. I want the immersive experience of something.
Yeah.
So, like, going on some kind of, like, weird adventure, like hiking, or, you know, something like a road trip where you take a wrong turn. It's like, that sounds so much more interesting to me than, like, going somewhere loud and boisterous.
Yeah.
I don't want to get distracted.
And again, I get, like, the whole, wanting distraction thing, but I've never understood why people go to, like, clubs to, hook up with people, because they're so loud, you're basically having to shout at each other when you're, like, sitting 2 feet apart, where it's like, did you say Derek? Your name is Derek? It's like, Eric. It's like, Mike? Jeff? Did you say Jeff? I'm just gonna call you Jeff for the rest of the night. Is that okay? It's like, okay, I'm Jeff now.
Well, and looking at that, though, it's like people that go to clubs to find someone is like they're there for the sole purpose of hooking up. You know, they're not there for an emotional connection. And so they don't really do a lot of talking, because everything is just based on looks, like physical appeal, and that's it. Versus, I think, for other people, that's not what you're looking for, you know? And, like, for me personally, I'm kind of weirded out by romantic relationships anyway. Like, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Like, I go into panic mode. So it's like, just, that sounds so uncomfortable. Like, just hooking up with some random stranger. I'm like, I have a hard time connecting with people I do like.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, that is too much. And I do think that's the difference there. But once again, you know, like, immersive experience versus distraction. Or at least that's how I kind of like break it down.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Generally. So yeah. Connecting with people when they have no hobbies is
tough.
So hard. And it's really difficult too when you have, like, so many people that just, they don't have hobbies anymore. Like, I've noticed this seems to be, like, quite the phenomenon. Like, I can't find anyone that really does something outside of work other than, like, go grocery shopping or
like typical adult stuff.
Exactly. It's like, that's not a hobby. That's just something you do.
Yeah.
Because you have to. And it's like, I've even had people ask me, like, what is a hobby? Like, you don't know?
It's like, that's so depressing.
It is. It's like, it could be like, okay, reading. Like, I could even accept that. You know, that works. Or, like, TV, cinema, if that's something that you're really into. You know, people can go, like, all out with that. Just anything. Video games, like, whatever. It could be, like,
ball.
Exactly. It could be, like, super obscure and weird. Just have something. But people just... And, like, I've even asked before, I'm like, okay, so then what do you do when you're not working and you're not with friends? They just sit at home.
And again, I'm introverted, but
But then they don't like TV or anything. So it's like they genuinely don't do anything. They just sit in their home. I would go insane.
Yeah, because, again, like, if you're gonna... Again, me being the introvert, usually when I'm home, I'm doing something... Like, again, watching TV, I'm writing, I'm painting, I'm doing something that I enjoy. Again, hobbies. So if I'm just, like, I guess, sitting there on my couch, just no music or anything going on, like, what am I doing? I need to get out of the house.
That would be a very low point for me. Like, you would know something was deeply wrong if I'm just sitting not doing anything. So, yeah, that's a challenge. Okay, here, I've got one. What is something that goes on in your day-to-day life that feels like it's part of a video game?
Ooh. So when I'm at work, it feels like almost like when you're the game kind of like gets like in a loop, like there's a glitch where it keeps looping. That's what it feels like a lot. Where I'm just kind of like, please, for the love of God, let me skip. And then I don't know. There have been a few times, like through some of my travels, where it felt like a video game setting, just because of like the beautiful scenery and stuff like that. Last year in New Zealand, like when we were in I think Hooker Valley National Park is the name of it. One, because like obviously that's where they filmed Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, so there were so many scenes where I'm like, I'm in Middle Earth. So I felt like I was going on a quest, like when we'd be hiking through some of these trails of mountains. I'm like, I feel like I'm going on a side quest.
Just really fulfilling a fantasy.
Yeah, it's like, man, I hope there's like a dragon at the top of this ridge so I can just fight it and really just feel like I'm on an adventure. But my day-to-day life, I think is way too boring to where I feel like I'm in a video game. And if it's a video game, please get a better game. Shut this one off.
You need updates.
Yeah, because I know I forget at one point me and some friends were talking about like the simulation theory, where basically it's like there's actually, I guess depending on who you ask, like some scientists say there's like 1 in a million chance that we're living in a simulation. Others say it's higher, like say 50-50. But if we are living in a simulation, my whole thing was, who's playing me?
Yes. And why?
Yeah, like, give me something. Like, give me a power-up or something. I don't know. Like,
well, and I am just like, I would be deeply disappointed with the writing. Like, come on, man.
It's like,
this is terrible.
Do something. Make my life more exciting. Like, who would get fulfillment of, like, I just want to see him go into work today and kind of hate being there.
See, now we're getting into, like, stalker territory. So it's just, like, that whole theory, it doesn't do it for me. I'm sorry.
It's like, or if someone could really please just find some cheat codes for me, I don't have to be, like, invulnerable or anything like that. Just give me a simple power-up.
Like some epic DLC here to counterbalance this horrible life that you have created.
Like, give me a DLC where my work involves traveling and exploring. Then I can get behind that simulation, and I will gladly let that person play. Play me sounds weird. Experience my travels is a better way of putting it. Yes, so. Simulation theory, if that's a thing, and players, you're listening, for the love of God, give me something.
Get some updates, please.
Yes.
For me personally, one of the things that really feels like a video game to me is going back to, funny enough, work. Like, just the whole thing, though. Like, from the time I clock in to up to the time, like, I clock out, it feels very much like a video game, because you come across these people that you can't really talk to because you're working on a project.
Right.
So you have a task that you can sometimes pause to chit-chat with this person, but it's only to a certain point.
Yeah, they're like the NPCs that can't give you a quest, where you can talk to them, they'll give you lines of dialogue, you're like, okay, that's a fun little tidbit of information. Moving on.
But and then sometimes, like, even when you do have the time to talk longer, you hit a lull.
Yeah.
Because, like, they have run out of dialogue. They don't know what to say. So then you have to walk away.
Yeah. Otherwise, you push A again, and then they start it all over again. And you're like, no!
Exactly. And then, like, you start interacting with customers. And because of, like, depending on your job and stuff, a lot of the things that I end up saying to initiate conversation, because there are so many, like, procedures and policies and, like, customer service things that they want you to do. So a lot of what I say to every single person that comes to the paint desk is so generic and repetitive. And so it's like clicking the button, it's just, you do it all over again. And so... And every interaction is just so, for the most part, like, very hollow.
Yeah.
Again, it all feels so pre-planned.
Yeah, because I feel like anybody who works in any kind of customer service job, whether it be retail, the service industry, or like a waiter, server, anything dealing with the public, you pretty much, a lot of it is hollow, because you're plastering that fake smile, you're acting like everything is right as rain, and, you're just like, hey, how are you doing today? Is there anything I can help you with? Or whatever your generic dialogue is. That essentially, occasionally, like over my years of working in the customer service field throughout several jobs, occasionally I get a very cool customer. I'm like, oh, that was actually a really cool conversation. They were really nice.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time, though, it is just that very...
Well, and then when you meet those people, it's almost like a cutscene.
Yeah.
Where it's like, you stumbled across a new part of the game.
Yeah.
You know?
So that's when another customer comes to the set. It's like, I need help. It's like, shh, we're talking. It's like, not now, NPC. I'm talking to a character who actually has dialogue and could give me a side quest. Please give me a side quest.
Don't ruin it.
Yeah.
Oh, and then even when it comes to like completing like tasks and projects and stuff, just like in a game, you put in all this work, all this effort, and it's like so involved and it's very complicated. And then at the end of it, you get like this tiny little thing. Like, there's really no other reward.
Yeah.
You were just doing it for that one object that you can put in your inventory for this other quest.
Yep.
And that's exactly what it feels like I do at work. You know, you jump through these hoops, you go above and beyond, and it's like they don't really care.
Yeah.
It's just like, yeah, you did what I asked you to do. Thank you so much for that. So you got that little leaf that took you 8 hours, you know, of time invested in all this stuff just to get that one thing.
And then you're like, man, this game sucks. I need to move on to a different one.
Or it's like, I'm so glad that quest is over.
Yeah.
Like, I hated it so much. So, yeah, just work in general very much feels like it's part of the video game for me.
Yeah, and again, not in a good, like a good way, not a fun, exciting game like Legend of Zelda or Skyrim or Mario or anything like that. Yeah, Final Fantasy.
Uncharted.
Never played those games.
They are so good. They're amazing. You definitely should. They're just adventure games.
Yeah, because I've heard people compare them to basically like Indiana Jones-esque. But, yeah, not Indiana Jones.
Yeah, they're delightful. 10 out of 10 would recommend.
Okay.
They're amazing. Okay, next question. Have you made any of your own house rules or expressions?
House rules or expressions?
Okay, so like house rules is something I stumbled across when I was working in a grocery store. They wanted us to do this thing called Blue Line, which is if you don't have a customer, you go around your register and you try to like call people over.
Okay.
So that they know that you're there.
Okay.
I thought it was one of the dumbest things ever. Because you already have those lights that are above the registers.
That signals you're open.
Right. And it's like, it's not like you have to go through a maze to figure out if someone's back there. It's like you can just like look around the corner. You can see for yourself. It's like use your brain and your eye holes. It's not difficult.
Eye holes.
Oh my gosh. And so I just refused to do it. Like, every time one of my managers or someone would come over to me, and they'd be like, I need you to Blue Line. I'd be like, absolutely, I'll get right on it. And they'd walk away, and then I wouldn't do it. Because I'm like, I'm not, no, this is so dumb. And so, a lot of my other coworkers, though, took it very seriously. And they would get on other people for not doing it.
Oh.
They were, like, very passionate about it. Some.
I don't know, I guess good on them, but at the same time, it's like, calm down.
Yeah, it's not that serious. And so the baggers, some of them would get like really annoyed. And so there was one in particular that I kind of had, it was like a frenemies situation. And he came over to my lane, and it was because he knew I wasn't going to fuss at him for just taking a minute to just stand there and not do anything. And he got one of his other friends over. He was like, we can go over to Anna's lane. He was like, because you're not... something was said, like, he made a comment, one of them, about, like, me fussing. And his... let's call him Jim.
Okay.
Jim was like, no. He's like, Anna doesn't snitch. He's like, we're good. He's like, here in the house of Anna, we do not Blue Line. And I was like, I just got like this idea of this thing that I could create, which was house rules. Because when you're an adult, that is one of the few privileges you have. You can have whatever rules and regulations you want, and they can be anything. You know, they don't have to be boundaries. It's just stuff that here in the house of Gimli or Anna or whomever, we do this or we do not do this, you know? So, like, here in the house of Anna, we do not get up before 8 in the morning. That is just awful. And the list goes on. But it could be whatever you want.
House rules. I'm trying to think if I've ever had a house rule, like, at any of my jobs or anything that I do in, like, when I'm not working. And then what was the other one? House rules and what else?
And expressions.
Expression.
So, like, I have the ignominious extinguisher, Thayo. I have I have a lot more, but those are the two that are coming to mind, like, at the moment. So Thayo I came up with because it occurred to me, like, you know, if somebody puts half the effort into doing something for you, like, it didn't inconvenience them in any way, shape, or form, and it was kind of an afterthought as well. It was still nice, so you should still acknowledge it, obviously, to be polite. But I just don't feel like you should give them a full thank you. Like, match the effort, you know? So, they give half the effort, you give them a Thayo.
Okay.
Because it's half a thank you.
Hey, I like it.
So, different things like that. The ignominious extinguisher is a tactic that I came up with that I would say... I'm not going to get into statistics on, like, how much this works and how much it doesn't. But the ignominious extinguisher is basically, like, when you want to address the elephant in the room, but you want to do it in a subtle way, and then it just creates, like, this really awkward effect because it's like nobody really knows how to, like, ask whatever question it is without making it awkward. So, you approach it head on. You just say, this is going to sound really weird and really awkward. It's not, so hear me out. And you invoke the ignominious extinguisher.
Okay.
You extinguish the awkward situation. Because most of the time people go with you and they're like, okay. You know, because they have that perception and perspective now. Versus when you don't say, this is going to sound weird.
Okay. I could definitely see how that could potentially be more successful than just kind of skirting around the issue, or maybe just outright being like, oh, Becky's having an affair! And then that's when things get really weird.
Exactly. Or it's like, I have something that's going to sound really awkward at first, but I promise it's not. Just, you have to let me get to the end.
The preface, I think, helps prepare people for, like...
Exactly.
Okay, gotcha. I can't really think of any house rules. And even expressions, I wouldn't say I have, like, any necessarily unique, like, expressions to myself, but I would say there's one that I definitely got from my grandfather on my dad's side. I think especially, like, after he passed away, I think I do it more just out of, like, in honor and in remembrance, but, like, one of my favorite things that he would say is just anytime he was, like, annoyed or something is, because also, should also contextualize, so my grandfather on my dad's side was one of the most grumpy, curmudgeonly old men I've ever met.
I know, I love those stories.
It's almost comical. Like, you would think this is a fictional character of how just like, as a kid, he was a grumpy old man. When let's see, I'm 33, so, I don't know, he would have been, like, in his 40s. So, middle-aged. Or young middle age, and he was still a grumpy old man. Who smoked like a freight train. So just kind of picture the grumpiest old man you can imagine, smoking like a freight train. But one of my favorite phrases of his is he's like, shit! So, like, and one of my favorite memories of that is, so a couple of years ago, so he had just gotten out of the hospital, like, things were looking dicey, but, you know, it all worked out at the time. So we had gotten together, like, the whole family around Thanksgiving. So we went to go see my grandparents, because they used to live in my childhood home that I grew up in Western Kentucky. And so we drove down there to see my grandfather, because he just got out of the hospital, and also it was around Thanksgiving, so we were like, hey, let's all just get together. And so it was the first time that, like, you know, so me, my older brother, my oldest sister, my aunt on Dad's side, some of my cousins, like my uncle on dad's side. So like a lot of us were all together at once.
Mm-hmm.
And so my grandmother was like, hey, this is the first time like all of us have been together like at the same time. Let's get a family picture. And so we all go outside in the front yard because it's actually a relatively comfortable day for November.
Mm-hmm.
And so my grandfather, he's just like sitting in the living room like watching TV really loud, as his fashion because he couldn't hear anything.
As you do.
Yeah. so we're outside. We're about to take a picture, and then my grandmother's like, "Well, hey, your grandfather's not out here." And she turns to my oldest sister, Alyssa. She's like, "Listen, go get your papa and get him out here."
Mm-hmm.
So she's like, "Okay." So she goes up the steps, opens the door, and she just kind of like peeks her head inside, and we can hear her saying, to my grandfather, she's like, "Hey, Papa, we're all about to take a family picture. Nanny wants you to come outside and take a picture with us." Mm-hmm. So we just hear, "Oh shit!" he comes outside just as stubborn and grumpy as possible. It's like, why are you grumpy? Yeah. And he would always send like these mixed messages where like when we would come down to visit, again, he always just seemed grumpy and like inconvenienced that we were there. But like as we were about to leave, he'd be like, "What, you all aren't spending the night?" And it's like, okay, make up your mind. Are you angry and grumpy because we're like just all up in your business, or do you like love us and want us to be around you all the time? But that was kind of like also his way of showing affection too, is just in his own grumpy man way.
Yeah.
But my very long-winded, kind of rambly way of getting back to that is, so a lot of times, especially fairly recently, like we were sitting around the solo stove, because it was a nice evening out back in the fall,
mm-hmm.
And like I sat down in my chair and like almost fell back, so that just the first thing that came out of my mouth was like, "Oh shit!" And so my dad was like, "Your papa would be proud." So I guess that's just become like a default thing where if I'm surprised or
mm-hmm.
like if I stub my toe, like any kind of things like that,
yeah.
that's just the first thing unintentionally that comes out of my mouth is like, "Ah, shit."
I think to like really take it all the way, you should only ever say it with the old man.
Oh shit.
Yes.
That and I think I've told you too, my other second favorite phrase that he would do, say, very similar,
mm-hmm.
is so anytime like there was something he didn't quite understand, like if we watched a movie and he, for whatever reason, wasn't following along with the plot or story,
mm-hmm.
he'd be like, "Hey, Papa, what do you think about that movie?" He'd be like, "Oh, it's bullshit." But he would never really delve into why.
Yeah.
He just, anything that went over his head,
yeah.
he just can be like, and again, just his grumpy, stubborn ways, like, it could be a cinematic masterpiece.
Mm-hmm.
Like, scientists would all be like, "No, that movie is the greatest movie ever made."
Mm-hmm.
And if John Wayne was not in it, he'd be like, "Well, that movie was bullshit." It's like, well, what are you talking about, Papa? Like, the acting was good, the production down, he's like, "Well, I didn't get none of it." It's like, okay. What about that John Wayne movie? He's like, "No, that's a cinematic masterpiece." Then he could go on about why that John Wayne movie was the best movie ever made.
That's amazing. He really does sound like a cartoon character.
Yeah, he really does.
Oh gosh, that's incredible. That's very fun. And I could see why those would be expressions that you just like really held on to.
Yeah.
Because it's not so much what's said, it's how it's said.
Yeah.
So that's fun. One of the ones we actually accidentally came up with, there was one night I was hanging out with Evan, and he was trying to say it was like proper something, but we were both really tired
mm-hmm. and
really slap happy. So whatever it was, I can't remember which one of us said it actually. I thought it was Evan, but anyway, whoever said it, it came out as proper snout. And we just busted out laughing. It was not that funny, but then afterwards we were like, you could like really turn this into a thing, especially with like so much of the modern slang that's being used that makes no sense.
Oh yeah, no, I hate it.
Anytime you really love something, just be like, that is proper snout.
So I guess also kind of circling back to things that like I guess are a turn off is like when people use a lot of those slang, because like there are some slang words that I kind of get, I mm-hmm. still don't say them because I don't know,
mm-hmm.
it doesn't fit for me. But there are some words that are like, okay, I can kind of get why that's a thing people would say.
Mm-hmm.
But then there are other things that people say and I'm like, well,
it makes no sense.
I'm flabbergasted because I'm like, how do you get that
yes.
from this?
Or it's like, why would you go through so much trouble to? Because like some of the slang terms that they use, it's like they have like actions and things that go along with them, like the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
Why do you want to go through the trouble? Like, why don't you just say the whole thing?
Yeah.
Like, you're putting more effort into condensing it. And
I feel like I need a translator for like younger people because
it's so bad.
It's like whenever I would travel, I usually go with my older brother, his girlfriend, and then a couple of his friends. So his girlfriend's a little bit younger than the rest of us because we're all in our 30s. She's 26, I think. Mm-hmm. So she's hip with all the new lingo. So she would say like some of these words, and we're just like, what? Like I learned, I think it was like it's either when we were in New Zealand or when we were on our hiking trip in Maine, but she explained to us what bussin' means.
That is so funny. Evan just explained that to me yesterday because he used it and I was like, I have no idea what that means.
So because I think we were like bussin' like you're like bussin' tables or something, and it's because I think it's like something's good, but I think it's not. Yeah. I don't think it's necessarily everything. I think it mostly pertains to food. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I think...
Or it's maybe like... I think it's mostly like food and drinks that it applies to.
Yes, but it can be used...
Yeah, because I think she kind of like explained the intricacies of how bussin' works. It's like, well, yeah, you could say it for, oh, that shirt's bussin', but it's mostly used for like food and drinks. I'm like, well, why is there etiquette now for slang?
Right. Well... And, like, when you go back to, like, old-fashioned slang, I love old-fashioned slang. Like, 20s.
Yeah.
That is just so fun. But it all makes sense, and it's clever. Because, like, a lot of the terms that were used back then actually came from jazz or just, like, professions at the time. So it's, like, when you really delve into it, it's, like, this stuff makes sense.
Yeah.
Versus what we have now, which is just so chaotic and random. And so much of it doesn't... It's, like... You can't trace it back to its origins because it's so jumbled.
And I know, like, obviously we're so interconnected with the internet, but I still don't understand how these words catch on, like, so quick. Because it seems like, or at least for me, overnight, I'll wake up, I'll have a conversation with someone, and they're like, oh, the gib gob goobly. I'm like, what? It's like, oh, the gib gob goobly. I'm like, no, I don't, what is this word? This is not a word. And then they explain it to me, and they're like, no, I still refuse. I'm like, this is not a word. Quit saying that.
Yeah, it's stupid.
Speak normal.
Yes.
You don't even have to speak English. Speak a regular language that doesn't have all these stupid slang words. Please.
Well, and, like, one of the things that, like, threw me off was when I started hearing people talking about, like, that's cap. Because I thought they were talking about, like, to cap something off. No, it's just another way to say suspicious. That makes no sense.
Like sus, when people are like, oh, that's sus. That makes sense, because it can...
Right. I don't like it, but at least, like you said, it's intelligent, you can understand.
Yeah, not hard to follow. You're like, sus. Suspect? Suspicious? Oh, okay. That probably means something along those lines.
But see, I always went with, like, to suss something out, so that also confused.
But again, that would also make sense.
Yes.
But yeah, then when people are like no cap? I don't know what no cap means. I don't know if that's similar to top cap or whatever you said.
Like, just that's cap.
Oh, that's
cap.
I
think no cap is, like, that's, like, another way of saying, like, no lie, you're not lying, that kind of thing. I don't know that for a fact, so I'm probably going to get roasted, but I'm
clarify
sure.
These for me. Like, give me, like, a new... I don't know. Like, and I guess part of me is, like, I kind of dread looking at an urban dictionary of, a lot of these modern words.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
But at the same time, I'm like, well, I mean, that's kind of how languages evolve, though, is someone just says a random word and they're like, I'm rolling with it. That means this now. But I just don't like a lot of the modern lingo. And maybe, again, that's just me being a bitter old man at heart.
Well, again, I'm not against, like, slang in general. I just don't like how...
I feel like a lot of it is lazy, kind of like what you were saying. It just... Yeah. Or there's no...
There's no creativity. There's not a punchline, There's not really a point. It's just not clever, not creative. Like there are some slang terms that I like that are more recent, not like probably not this century, even recent, but like I actually do enjoy the like spill the tea. I think that's funny and it makes sense. Yeah, like tea time, gossiping and stuff, but I also watch a lot of British television, so that just makes sense to me. I think it's funny. But I don't think that's, like, incredibly recent.
That's another thing too. Is I love British humor because even when it is being like more like crass and raunchy, it still feels more elevated than like American humor.
Yeah, Americans go for like the shock value.
Yeah, and again, sometimes that can be funny, but I feel like shock value, it's very hard to do that right, in my opinion, because I feel like you're either, and again, one of my biggest problems is I feel like a lot of people just do it for the sake of like, ooh, I want to get gasps, or for, again, just for the sake of like, ooh, I want to be that guy, I want to, I don't know, cause some kind of disruption or whatever.
Yeah.
But sometimes I think it can work, but overall, I'm not a huge fan of like that type of humor.
Yeah, I don't like raunchy humor or shock humor. It's not funny to me.
Mm-hmm.
They always land like really flat.
Yeah.
I just don't laugh. It's just not there.
But then again, same thing could be said because I also really like dark humor.
True. Now,
which is definitely not for everyone.
No.
And sometimes when I'm talking to new people, I'm like, I kind of want to say this dark joke, but they don't know me well enough,
Yeah.
So I kind of have to decide. It's like, do I just go for it?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, yep, this is my kind of humor. Now you know what kind of person I am. Or it's like, or do I
tone it down?
Tone it down. Wait a little. Test the waters. See what their sense of humor is. Because there are times where my sense of humor can get dark, and I'm sure people who don't know are like, oh, that's sad, that's depressing. And it's like, nah, it's fine, I'm okay, probably.
I love like when it's not on TV, I do really enjoy dark humor as well. Like as far as like telling a really dark joke that is based on like my day-to-day.
Yeah, I think
depression.
That's I think when it's funniest is when it's that self-deprecating.
Yes.
Again, because I think dark humor can sometimes go into that like shock kind of humor.
Yeah.
But yeah, and again, that's where a lot of my humor is it's very self-deprecating. And someone who has a lot of like anxiety and has had like depression and stuff like that. Yeah, I'll occasionally make the joke of kind of like, well, I guess I'll just kill myself, which. To someone who doesn't know me, they're like, "Oh no, don't do that!" And they might start getting genuinely concerned. It's like, it's fine. I'm not gonna do that.
Yes. Or I found too, like you don't even have to go like super dark with it. Like I make jokes about being a super pale person like all the time.
Oh yeah. Same.
It's not something that bothers me. It's not something I'm insecure about, which is another reason I pick on it like all the time because I think it is like genuinely funny.
Yeah.
But anytime I tell a joke like that, and I could be laughing like really hard because I usually do when I tell a joke that no one else finds funny, I'll still laugh. I amuse myself. But people will like immediately be like, no, like you have beautiful skin, or like you could totally tan if you wanted to, you wouldn't look weird, and they go to this whole thing, and it's like, I was just being funny.
Yeah.
Like, it's fine. Thank you, though.
Most people, well, maybe not most, but like either people will laugh because there's like, okay, yes, you are very pale. That's funny. Or two, they will like, they don't necessarily, I guess, feel, get like, oh no, I wasn't, oh no, you've got really good skin. It's more of just like, oh, you could probably tan. I'm like, no, this is as tan as it gets.
Yeah.
There is no hope. It's like fireworks go off, I get a tan or get sunburnt. I don't tan. I just get red as a lobster.
Yes.
And then I go back to being ghostly pale.
I have explained that to people as well. It's like, gingers with really pale skin, like we don't tan. We just burn and then go back to being pale, like you said. Yeah.
So usually when I tell, like, to really convey how pale I am and how there is no hope for me to tan, is when I tell people that I managed to get sunburned in Ireland, they're like, oh, there's no hope for you. I'm like, see? I cannot tan. Which also, like, a little side note. So when I was in Ireland back in, I was like 11 years? Yeah, 11 years ago. So it was like apparently the best weather they'd had in like 6 years. Like it was, sunny for the most part, 70 like degree weather. Which is how I got sunburned because, again, I went in with the expectation that it's going to be cloudy and rainy like 90% of the time, like it usually is. But I remember when we'd be driving through town or the countryside and stuff like that, there'd be all these people like outside, like laying in their yards or laying out in parks trying to tan. I'm like, guys,
I came here to get away from this.
No, but it's like, guys, you're Irish. We don't tan.
Right.
What are you doing? Do you want sun cancer? Is that what you want? Go back inside. Go to the pub. So I just thought that was kind of humorous.
It is,
that all these
yeah.
pasty pale Irish people were like laying out this. I was like,
Out in the
oh,
sun.
maybe one day I'll get tan. It's like, no, you will not.
I don't think it's happening. Yeah, that's pretty funny. Yeah, I don't step out of my house during the summer without wearing sunscreen, and it has to be 100.
Yeah.
Because anything below that doesn't work.
Even 100 does not fully protect me.
Well, you have to reapply it.
Yes. So if I basically lather myself.
Yes.
It's not like I just do a quick spray. No, I have to like spray myself down, lather it on my skin multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
Then I maybe won't get burnt. And again, that's not a for sure thing. I might still get a little bit of sun, where I'm a little red. It usually doesn't like aggravate me, like where it's like a bad sunburn where kind of it's uncomfortable. But yeah, just to further illustrate to you listeners how pale I am, SPF 100 I have to apply multiple times. Like I basically have to wear to not get burnt at all. I would have to wear like a scuba suit that's still lathered with like SPF 100 on the interior. To not, to where I could go out in the full sun in broad daylight and not, burn up at all.
I don't feel like putting on sunscreen, so I will take an umbrella with me.
Yeah.
And then everybody makes jokes about me keeping the rain away.
It's like, look, I don't care if it's like 90 degrees and sunny, no clouds in sight. I don't want to get burnt. That's why I'm wearing an umbrella. Or not wearing an umbrella, but have an umbrella. Be weird if you're wearing an umbrella.
I don't know, it might be effective.
But yeah, that's true. So...
I did make the joke to my mom one time. I was in between jobs, and so while I was looking at different options, I was like, what I think would be really funny. I would consider going to work at Suntan City for the irony. So when people come in, they would be so surprised, oh, so you don't tan here? And I could be like, no, this is after. You should have seen me before. It was bad. This place has changed my life.
Are you an albino?
And then that, I'm sure, would probably bring in crowds of people. So that would also be very helpful and beneficial to their business.
Yes. That could even be your pitch during the interview. It's like, look, I know what you're thinking. What's this pale person doing in your Suntan City right now? But here's my plan. Then explain that to them. You're like, you know what? There's some logic behind that. You're hired.
Yes. We should sit down one day and just come up with a whole line of speech.
Or open our own sun tanning business.
There you go.
Where no one will come because why are you guys so pale? Because that's what happens. It's like, oh, no thanks. It's smart. Because honestly, you all shouldn't be tanning anyways in those sun tanners.
It is really unhealthy.
Just a little side note to you listeners. Trying to watch out for your health.
I feel like there was another story that pertained to that, but I can't remember what it was now. Oh well. Another joke for another time. Okay. So if you weren't a writer, what would you be instead?
Oh. That's a great question, because I don't really have a lot of skills. Or things that I'm particularly good at.
But if you had the time and you really wanted to put passion and effort into it, to learn and get really good at, what would you go into?
Well, so my original plan after I graduated high school is I wanted to be a history teacher, because I really love history.
Okay.
But kind of towards the end of my senior year of high school, it kind of dawned on me, I don't really like most of the kids my own age. So if I'm a teacher teaching high schoolers and possibly middle schoolers, yeah, I don't think I could handle that. And then I know some people are oh, you can teach college. Yes, I will further indebt myself for thousands upon thousands of dollars.
Yeah, it is insane.
Yeah, and that was another thing too. Is the whole financial aspect is teachers, for whatever reason, really don't get paid a whole lot. I think they still have decent benefits, probably depending on where you're at. But I think for the most part, teachers get decent benefits. At least I hope so. If you're not going to pay them that well, but there really wasn't much of an incentive because, and I even talked to some of my teachers. It's hey, I'm that's one of the things I'm considering as being a teacher, and they're cool, but I would not recommend it unless you were just incredibly passionate about this.
Yeah.
And there were some teachers where that was their gift. They were truly passionate about their jobs, and they were great teachers. Others, you could definitely tell they were like, I hate my job.
Yeah. That's like most of the ones I've met.
They were just there to, collect a paycheck and just put up with the day. And fair enough. That's most people's jobs anyways. But that was another thing too, is I was like, I love history, but I don't know if I'm quite passionate enough of it to like go to school for 4+ years to get a degree, and especially now where they basically force you to get a master's degree. They do help pay for the master's degree, but that's still so many years to spend on an education, and again, be in debt for the rest of my life because that's so much money.
Yeah.
So yeah. Now maybe like in a ideal world where education was not nearly as financially crippling, I probably would have stuck with that. As for current day me, who again does not have a college degree or anything like that, and has very limited skills, I really don't know. Because a lot of the things that I enjoy, like a lot of my hobbies, not exactly things that I could easily turn into a career, like, because again, I love to travel, but not a lot of jobs that allow me to travel the way I like to travel, because some people are like, oh, you could be like a flight attendant. Yeah, I'm getting to travel, and I would have some downtime, like, am I connecting flights, but when I go someplace, I want to get the full experience, like, I want to spend at least, like, a week or two there to really absorb the culture and stuff like that.
They actually have jobs now where they will send you to different hotels, like, across the world, to basically just critique them.
Now, something like that, I could probably get behind. But then I also think, so if I did get a job like that, where I'm constantly, like, on the move, a part of me thinks, but then I'm on the move a lot. And as much as I like to travel...
Introvert.
Yeah, I'm very introverted. And also, I don't want to travel by myself. I like to travel with other people.
Yeah.
So that would kind of take a little bit of the fun away, is if I don't have, like, friends or family to go with me. Again, I'm also very introverted, so it's like, I like the idea of going to a new place and just like, I'm going to go to the first pub I see and just chat up with the locals. Realistically, I'll probably be the weird guy sitting in the corner, drinking my beer alone, while thinking about talking to somebody.
Going back to one of our original topics, having a hard time approaching people.
Exactly. So yeah, I really don't know what I would be. Because obviously I'm still, like, I even once I do publish, realistically, I'll still have to keep, like, my main job, and that's fine. Like, I'm not expecting, like, this is my get-rich-slow scheme. So, realistically, yes, I'll still have to have, like, a day job that's my primary income, and whatever I make off, my books, I'll just set aside for fun money, whether it be for, like, going on vacations or gas, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess that's the thing. Is like most of my hobbies, like again, recording podcasts. Everyone and their moms have a podcast now. So unless for whatever reason someone is listening to this right now and they're like, "This is the next big thing,"
right?
Which cool, but why? There are better options out there.
Back to the self-deprecating humor.
Exactly. It all comes full circle, guys. And then I guess that's part of the reason why I'm in the state that I'm in my life is, even in my 30s, I have no clue what I'm doing. I'm just flying at the seat of my pants in this terrible video game we call life.
And so you write about it in a fictitious setting.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. Honestly, and this is going to sound really weird, it really does tend to, like, weird people out. I would probably go into forensics.
Okay.
I just think it is so fascinating. Yes, it can be very gross and disgusting, and it is not for the faint of heart, but honestly, it wouldn't bother me so much, because it's like, I thought about, like, when I was in high school, like, becoming a homicide detective. And ultimately, I decided against it, because I was like, it's so much time.
Yeah.
And you have to be on call all the time.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. And it's like, I have to help. Like, my mom's not in really great health. And so, like, I have to be around a lot, because I'm the one that, like, my family really relies on to do a lot of different stuff. So it's like that just wasn't conducive, as well as it's like, I think there would be a point for me personally where it's like it would probably be hard to separate emotionally a lot, because I can compartmentalize, but I don't think I could do it that well.
Yeah.
You know, so when I really started looking at forensics, I was like, well, that's actually really interesting, and like I love the delving into like the fine-tuned details and like cataloging things, and even when you're dealing with like really mangled, gross, like dead bodies, it's still, there is I think I could compartmentalize that, because it's like you're just dealing with a corpse.
Yeah.
It's like they're gone, they don't feel pain anymore. Now we're just dissecting and cataloging, you know. And I just think the whole process is just really interesting, as weird and like morbid as it sounds.
No, like, again, I think that I can definitely see why, because it is a fascinating, I guess, career. Obviously, I imagine it's not for everyone, because again, you are dealing with a lot of death. Maybe not like, firsthand death, like seeing it take place,
right.
But yeah, you're dealing with a lot of, dead bodies, how'd they die, and, all that stuff. But I don't know, I could see the appeal to that, because it is kind of a mystery, maybe in some cases where it's like, how did this person die? They seem to be in good health, they're, relatively young. Was it some kind of like, maybe some kind of recessive gene that caused this, or is it, any number of things, and then you're going down the rabbit hole of testing samples and all that stuff, and you're like, turns out they just, I don't know, had an allergic reaction to bees, and they didn't know they were allergic to bees, or something like that.
And in cases where it is like a little more sinister, and like you're looking at like murder victims and things like that, a lot of times like the forensics part is like pivotal to helping solve that case, or like catching the person that did it. And so like that's also like really cool and really commendable too. So it's like it's not just a really weird profession to get into, it's like it is very rewarding and helpful, so yeah, that's probably what I would go into, but I think I have a better personality for writing.
I don't know. I feel like I think we flourish with our creativity, and that's where we're happiest and feel more fulfilled than like a regular 9-to-5 job, or even like
it's
other.
crushing.
And again, not trying to disparage the people who do that. Good on you. I wish I could be as, I guess, as could tolerate it as well as other people, but it really is soul crushing.
It is, well, because you don't, like, for example, like working a regular 9-to-5, which both of us being neurodivergent, we don't think like other people anyway, and so we're already like on the outside looking in a lot of the time, and then being put in a system where everyone thinks like these other people. And you don't get to use your creativity or the things that you're really good at, Like, you don't get to do your thing. Yeah.
Or if we try to suggest, like, hey, well, what if I try to do it this way? Then we're like, no, just do it the way we told you. It's like, well, you're right, but I'm still getting the job done. Like,
right, and it makes it easier for you to do, because you understand it better, and it works with the way that your brain operates. Yeah. But you can't, because this is the generic way, and they want you to do it the way everyone else does it.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. Like that's, I guess maybe it's depressing as can't stand. It's like writing's the one thing that kind of keeps me like really. It helps me bear through like the day-to-day life.
Yes.
Because like the days where like I can't, like I'm struggling to write like a chapter or something like that. It's really it's just really frustrating just as a creative, but also. Then it's like, especially if I'm having so much trouble that I just kind of like give up and I'm like, whatever, I'll just come back to it tomorrow. Then I just sit there feeling unproductive. So I'm like, that's like the one thing that's like keeping me going through the day, and I'm not focusing. Because sometimes it's just as easy as like looking back over like a line of dialogue or a scene in a different angle or something like that. And then all of a sudden the gears start moving. I'm like, okay, maybe if I just change it up or change the order of this scene or change the order of the dialogue. Or sometimes it just helps to get an extra pair of eyes. Like, again, anytime I've sent you or your brother something I'm working on, just like, not sure where I'm going with this, or like just, general feedback. Then you will give me, a lot of times, what is a simple suggestion, like, well, why don't you just do this? And I'm like, my God, genius.
say the same thing too. I think because it's like you get so invested and you're so focused on it that sometimes it's like the more obvious things kind of slip past.
Yes.
You know, because you are, I mean, in a way, overthinking it. And so, but it's like when you finally do like break through that like block or speed bump, whatever it is that's like holding you back from like continuing the story, the just like relief.
Oh my
that
God.
you feel. There is like nothing like it. You get a high.
Yeah, it's not only a relief, but it's so rewarding.
It is.
Because then, again, like it just starts flowing naturally. You're like, yes, okay, it's coming. And then I just like start typing away like, please don't stop. Just don't stop. Keep writing before you lose your momentum. Because sometimes that will kill it too.
Oh, yeah.
Is like if I've got a good momentum going, but it's starting to get kind of late. And I'm like, I kind of don't want to stop because I've got a good thing going, but at the same time, I need sleep. And there have been so many times where I'll stop, so I'm like, I'll remember tomorrow. And even if I do remember, it's still not the same as, you know, the night before. And then I just stare at the screen. I'm like, it's still in my head, but it just doesn't. It's not clicking. And that also is very frustrating too.
Yes.
Because I'm like, nothing's changed. You're still in the image, the dialogue. It's still in my brain.
Yeah, or you're like this character or this scene or whatever. It's like it needs something, and everybody else that you show it to, they're like, no, it's fine. Like, why does it need something? And you're like, no, you don't understand because like you know you're missing something, but you don't know what it is. And there have been times where it's like taken me months before finally something just like pops into my head, and it's like, yes.
But I guess kind of to that, a lot of times. What's all kind of add to the frustration is I've had times where I'm not in a convenient spot to like just run over to my laptop and start typing away. It's like I'll be at work and like finally the chapter that I was having trouble with like just clicks and like that's it. Oh, but now I got 4 more hours left before I can go home. It's like please retain. It's like I'm like trying to mentally be like do not forget this.
So funny enough, and this is another reason I think I really pursued writing is because it's like I will go out of my way to make time to sit down and think up stories and things or to add to like when I was working in a grocery store and I hated it. It was awful. It was so bad.
I've heard so many horror stories about that place.
Oh my gosh. Well, and then too, I don't like standing still. And they put me on registers.
It's the worst.
And it was the only thing I was allowed to do. Like, they would not train me on anything else. They wouldn't let me switch departments. It's like, I just had to sit in this box.
Yes.
And so, what I started doing is I found out you could print blank receipt paper. And so, like, in between customers and stuff, I would rip some off and I would just, like, scribble anything I could think of.
Yeah.
Like, character ideas. A lot of times it was dialogue, just back and forth, you know. And I would come home and like in my apron and everything, it would just be like full of receipt paper.
I've done that, and even like some of my notebooks still have just the random scratch pieces of paper that I would find like at work or could get a hold of, and I'm like, I don't know. I guess like part of me's like, man, like if I were to just like drop dead. And someone saw like all the like just scattered notes. You're like, what
is he doing?
It's like, where does this fit in? Who's this person? What story does this go to? So part of me is like, I don't know, maybe as morbid as it sounds, like making notes on those notes of like where it fits in. So that way it's like, if I did just drop dead, I want someone to finish these stories for me. So that way I can at least label them like, this goes here, this goes here. Where specifically? Have fun.
That's very thorough of you.
Again, that's my neurotic brain being like, but if you drop dead, who will finish your stories? How will they know how to finish them?
See, I think it would be kind of fun, like, if I died and people found my notes, then they would have so much fun decoding them. And, like, I could end up, who knows, on the History Channel years from now after I'm gone.
It's true.
You know, so it's like, that's always a possibility, and that's what I think of.
Although, I guess... Kind of on that note, I've also considered putting like a note in my wallet, so that way, again, if by a horrible circumstance I did just like suddenly die, I'd like to have a note in my wallet that says like something vague like Javier did it.
Yes.
So that way, like friends and family see that note and they're like, "Who's Javier? Was he affiliated with like gangs or crime or something?" And then hopefully it'd lead them on a fun investigation. Like, does he know a Javier? You know, flip through like my contacts on my phone. It's like, there's no Javier. Okay, I'll just ask friends. Hey, did Jake know a Javier? Do you know anything he was involved with? And he'd be like, no.
You could turn it into like a whole movie plot where you could like, think like way ahead of time and then start leaving like these fake clues for them to find and create like this fun little scavenger hunt, like road trip.
I've thought about doing that, but only if I had like, I don't plan on having children, but if somehow that ends up happening where I have children, I want to like live to an old age, and then when I do die, leave something like that, like a scavenger hunt where it's like, the secret family treasure is hidden in X location. Send them to that location. They're like, oh, the next clue is in this, and just send them all across until finally they come across the final clue. I don't know, back at like point A, and it's just like a video of me being like, gotcha! And they're like, no, we did all that for nothing! It's like, I hate my father! Like, granddad was the worst!
Or it would help them, like grieve through.
Oh, that would be my hope. But rather than explain, I just want to have a video of me being like, gotcha! And just not explaining. They're like, what does that mean, gotcha? Was this all a joke? Where's the treasure?
I feel like you could possibly like work this kind of behavior or mindset into your house rules. Just saying. Oh man. What was the question?
Yeah, I don't know how we got on this topic.
I don't either. Okay. What makes you passionate about storytelling?
So I guess just as a kid, having a vivid imagination, and also just being a fan of like, books, comics, movies, at a pretty early age, and just loving seeing those stories. Then as I got older, kind of been able to better like, break down of like, okay, what typically constitutes as like a good story or good pacing, good character development, dialogue, all that stuff. And then also being a history fan and being a lover of all things fantasy, I guess that was kind of me being like, well, I want to try my hand at this because, find a way to throw real life history with fantasy into my brain blender and spew it out and see what happens.
Brain blender.
Yeah, that's what I usually refer to it as because it's just a jumbled mess of ideas and stuff.
You have your own expressions now.
There we go, brain blender. Feel free to use it, people. But yeah, so I guess that's the thing is, and again, I like the satisfaction of crafting this world, creating characters, and just kind of exploring. So I guess the most rewarding thing for me is exploring this world that I created through the eyes of my character. Because obviously I know a lot about the world because I created it. But writing for characters who aren't as knowledgeable about it, and then there's a lot of things that I'll come up with as I'm like, they're just passing through like a rural farming town. It has no significance to the story, but there's something about that little town that I latch onto. I'm like, oh, but what else is going on in this little farming town? Like, who are some of the who's the village elder? And again, I'm the type of reader where I like those kind of details.
Yeah, you like the lore.
Yeah, I'm a lore junkie, so I'm sure when I do publish a lot of these stories, a lot of readers will be like, I do not care. Let's speed this story along. I don't need to know the currency exchange rate, which I would argue, you're correct, but it's still cool to know the exchange rate. So yeah, I guess, again, tiny little details like that, where anytime I've read a book or something like that, and maybe I felt like there were details that were lacking, even though, yes, they don't contribute to the story, they don't add anything to it, but just neat little facts that, especially like with sci-fi and fantasy, where to me, as a reader or a viewer of like a show or movie, is I like when they add those tiny little details because it gives me the impression of like, oh, if they've thought about like the exchange rate, they've thought of literally everything, all the behind the scenes stuff with this world.
Yeah.
And that fascinates me.
Well, and it is a far more like immersive experience.
Yes.
It's so much easier to get invested in, like lost in whatever world was created because there are so many like layers and intense, details. So it does create such a more clear picture.
Yeah.
So I mean, I definitely understand why that would be really appealing.
Yeah. So that's. This means nothing until I publish books, but for those of you listening, that's why I've basically dedicated most of my free time to writing stories because, one, I just enjoy it. It's satisfying. And so I do, from what I've been told from like fellow writers, it's not terrible, which is very reassuring for me. Especially writers who don't know anything about fantasy. They're like, yeah, no, you got good pacing. I like the characters. The dialogue's good. I'm like, yay! It's rewarding to know that I'm not terrible. Because, again, very neurotic, so I'm always overthinking. It's like, oh, but what if they're just being really nice? And again, like, friends have been very supportive too, but it's still nice to get, like, an objective opinion, people who don't know anything about fantasy, to give their opinions because they have no notion or context of, like, what constitutes as a good fantasy story or a good fantasy setting or anything like that.
Right.
They're just coming in a blank, like, okay, I don't know what that creature is, but it sounds cool.
No, and it is fun. One of the things about fiction, like, there was a quote I heard forever ago. I can't remember who said it, but I think it sums up storytelling and reading, like, whichever side you're on. Mm-hmm. Stories give us somewhere to go, and we have to stay exactly where we are.
Yes.
And
it's a nice escapism, too.
It really is. Well, and there's so much to fiction that people don't really think about, like kids that grow up, like, not having a lot of friends. Mm-hmm. You know, books are quite a haven.
Oh, yeah.
Because it takes you on adventures. You can be anyone you want to. You know what it's like to have friends if you read.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, you have friends in that way. Family dynamics. If you don't feel very funny, for example, you pick up a book and this character really is, like, they just have the best one-liners and things. You know, it teaches you. Mm-hmm. There are some really, like, moving moments that maybe touch on something that you're going through. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, well, that's very, like, you feel seen and heard even though you're not really talking to anyone. You know, it is a very special thing. Mm-hmm. And obviously not all fiction has that effect, but it still takes you somewhere. Mm-hmm. You know? And I think in that way, it is very, I think it's very needed, mm-hmm. and I think it's very underrated. Just fiction in general.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people, I don't know, it may be less so now, but I feel like for the longest time, I guess, like, genre, you know, whether it be like horror or fantasy or sci-fi or whatever, was kind of seen as, like, this lesser medium, whether it be like books or TV or movies or whatever. Mm-hmm. For whatever reason, it's like, unless it wasn't like a suspense thriller or, you know, political drama or something, it's like, oh, it's a horror movie, so whatever. Just kind of dismissive. But there's been so many great stories that have come out of, like, all sorts of different genres. Some of which, absolutely, you know, whether you take, like, fantasy or something, these great human moments where you could easily apply, like, these characters to the real world and nothing would change about them. Yeah. Or just great stories, like, maybe they're a little tropey, but it's tried and true. It's still inspirational because you're like, yeah, good always triumphs over evil. Just inspirational. Mm-hmm. And there's just so many things you can pull from fiction that, again, like, even though it takes place in a different galaxy or a different world, there's still characters you can find relatable or pull something from that to either maybe inspire yourself. Like, so many characters in Lord of the Rings, I think, are, like, the epitome of, like Aragorn is the epitome of, like, manliness. And not in, like, the toxic manliness, but, like, the dude is a healer. He's, like, humble. Yeah. Like, one of my favorite scenes in The Return of the King is when he becomes he's crowned king, approaches the hobbits, they bow, and he says, "My friends, you bow to no one." And he bows to them. That always gets me emotional. Yeah. Because even though it wasn't in the books, that's still in line with Aragorn's character.
Oh, absolutely. It fits.
Yeah,
it really does.
And again, also him acknowledging the fact that, like, they would not have won had it not been for the 4 hobbits that no one would have ever placed. Like, if people were placing bets, no one would have placed bets on the hobbits deciding the fate of Middle-earth. And just the simplicity of the hobbits, too. Because a lot of people, like, obviously Aragorn's an easy character to, like, aspire to. Mm-hmm. But also Sam.
I know.
If everyone had a Sam in their life,
right? This world would be such a better place.
Because Sam, in my opinion, is the true hero of Middle-earth and the Lord of the Rings story. And just the fact that he had that undying loyalty for Frodo specifically, but like everybody else, like no matter what circumstance, and he was just a gardener. At least the other three hobbits, they at least were kind of like aristocrats, the equivalent of nobles.
Yeah.
Sam was a gardener who came from humble origins.
Yeah.
Fought a giant spider and went through, like, literally...
So many more things.
Yeah, walked through Mordor, which, as Boromir said, one does not simply do that. But Sam did it!
Yes.
And then he carried Frodo on his back.
And dealt with Gollum.
Yeah, dealt with Gollum.
Just, like, well, and really shouldered, like, the burden in so many ways.
Both
like,
literally and physically.
Exactly. And at some points, like, by himself.
Yeah.
Like, he really was, like... because there were times where, like, Frodo, it's like you can see, especially closer to the end, it's like he's just so tired and he's so worn down, and it's like you kind of question if he's gonna make it or not, and he probably wouldn't have if not for Sam.
Yeah, and that's another one of my favorite scenes, too, is when they're right at the crack of Mount Doom, and Frodo's like, I can't go on.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't remember the taste of, like, anything, the smell of, like, you know, he's just going on all the things that he's numb to. And Sam, who's just as exhausted, is still kind of like, look, I can't carry that ring, but I can carry you, and then just throws him over his shoulder and like, yes! Yes! Like, again, that's why everyone needs a Sam in their life, where that is your ride or die, no matter how many mistakes you make, how down you're feeling, they're gonna keep pulling you back up and be like, okay, well, you're down, but come with me. I'm gonna cheer you up, we're gonna get through this.
You know, and seeing friendships like that, it really does just create such a high standard that I feel like this modern day is just like sorely lacking.
Yes. So maybe lesson of the podcast: be more like Sam.
Please. Let's go to Mordor.
But since we're going on in 3 hours now, probably a good way to wrap this up.
Yeah, we started with Lord of the Rings. Now we're gonna end with Lord of the Rings.
As Lord of the Rings often comes up on this channel. Because, you know...
I don't know why.
Yeah, it's weird. I've never seen those movies or read those books at all. Just discredit everything I said just a few moments ago about that being my favorite scene and stuff like that.
You know,
it's a lie.
And this is kind of funny, too, talking about bringing everything full circle. So, when we started this podcast, we talked about how we became friends through Lord of the Rings. And then, to end it, we talked about friendship and one of the best duos of all time, Sam and Frodo. And that's how we're going to end the podcast.
Bam. Could not have planned that better.
That is pretty impressive because, yes, that was not scripted.
Completely organic. But yes, so hopefully you enjoyed this rather lengthy episode. And leave your thoughts below, and I'm going to go ahead and end this before we start to ramble more, because it's going to happen. So until next, everyone, cheers.